I see the light inside you, brighter than the skies. Hold on, just let us escape and fly away tonight. We have the world in our sight, and I know together we'll be alright. Can you see forever we will go? We are forever learning, one step at a time. As long as the world is turning, I'll be by your side. We'll keep the fire burning, I'll never see you hurt. You know I can't explain it in a way of words. We both know that you'll understand, and you'll see if you take my hand, and I'll go out of my own way for you. I'll go out of my own way.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the main action of the Wuhan Open, and finally it is going to come down to the final two-player showdown to see on who's going to be the newly crowned Wuhan Open champion after Zhao was able to dethrone the former winner here in 24 and 25 of Zhao yesterday, and Chang has managed to beat Watchalong really well by 6 frames to 3. It was very much down to a slow burner for both of those semi-finals, but in the end, both Chang and Zhao have managed to provide a better performance from their own perspective of play, and now are going to be facing off against each other. It is the newly crowned the world number 1 versus the player that has just managed to sneak into the top 32, but I think he's going to be storming towards the top 24 as well if he is going to be able to try and win this match as well. For now, Chang has got 234,000 worth of ranking points, but as I say, you had another 100,000 on that, and he's going to be approaching Chipchaya with 334. But of course, when it comes down to Zhao Xington, he's managed to build himself a lead of 55,000 worth of ranking points over Neil Robertson, 150,000 over Weezer, and pretty much the same amount over Mark Selby and Judd Trump as well. So he's got plenty of things to try and exploit there, Zhao, but I think ultimately it's not really down to, trying to build a lead in the world number 1 spot there. I think it's all down to trying to make sure he will get himself in that window of trying to win the first trophy since, of course, winning the Tour Championship against Judd Trump was a very good performance for him at that stage, but been relatively quiet ever since. There's been 3 tournaments from that stage, and at the Crucible, didn't play necessarily too well, lost out to the runner-up. Then, of course, at the Shanghai Masters, lost out to the runner-up as well, but that time around in semi-finals, and in the China Open, he lost in the first round to Zhang Anda, but now he's got a great chance, especially when you think about his record in the ranking events. It is going to be very much down to Zhao Xington to be the favourite in this match, and when it comes down to Chang Min-yu, probably the only noticeable performance like this that he's had was against Chris Wakelin after a really good campaign that he had at the Scottish Open last season. But at the same time, it wasn't really the match and the opportunity that allowed him to be stepping to, the arena and winning that match in the end. He had to settle for a bit of a setback, you have to say, in that 4th frame, and he never really managed to recover ever since that point. But you still have to say it is gonna be his second final, and he has got some sort of experience after battling against Chris Wakelin. So I think we will see what's going to happen on this time of asking. As you can see, the world ranking, it's a massive jump there from Chang Min-yu from world number 45 to the world number 32. He scored a lot more points than Zhao Xington because of his competitive play in championship leagues, but still didn't manage to score a lot more centuries. 17 already for Zhao Xington in the opening 3 tournaments that he's played, and in 4 tournaments that Chang Min-yu has played, he has managed to make 18 centuries, which is 1 more than Zhao Xington has managed. But I think when you talk about their campaign that both of the players have, I think for Chang, pretty much every single round has to be noticeable. But when it comes down to Zhao Xington, when he was playing against Gao Yang, against Jack Jones, you felt like there was something in there. But realistically, you were those matches against Barry Hawkins, against Neil Robertson, and very much against Xiao Guodong yesterday, very much the defining feature as to what he's actually done. We can see that in Wuhan Open, he's played against Liu Hongyu, Ali Carter, Judd Trump, and Ronnie O'Sullivan. And the interesting thing about it is that he's lost very similar number of frames in comparison to Zhao Xington as well, because he's lost, 7 coming into this match, which, as I say, is going to be actually, I think, 1 more than Zhao Xington has lost, because he's lost, no, it's actually exactly the same amount, because he's lost 2 against Hawkins, 2 against Jack Jones, 2 against Xiao Guodong yesterday, and 1 against Neil Robertson. So both of the players coming into this match after having the first 5 rounds to be played and losing only 7 frames in those particular 2 encounters. So then, the handshake is in between the referee and Zhao Xington, that now makes his way towards the arena. Now the picture with the trophy is about to be made, and then we are going to get ourselves underway for this final of the Wuhan Open in 2026. 29-year-old against the 24-year-old. 6-3, best of 11. Well, it is, but you have to take it 1 session at a time. It is best of 19, but you can't have all 19 frames in the first session. And as I said, the question is, who's going to be the winner of the first session? To me, it is going to be Zhao Xington to lose, but I think, by the way, I always forget to say prediction for the whole match, and I'm going to go boring again. I'm not going to go boring, actually. I'm going to go 10-5 to Zhao Xington. I was about to say 10-6, but then I remembered who he's up against, and I still think there is going to be a bit of a class difference, because if you think about the way that Chang Min-yu was playing against Ronnie O'Sullivan yesterday, he didn't really have those spells that Zhao Xington had in his match against Xiao Guodong, but at the same time, he played a really good encounter against Judd Trump, so he mustn't be underestimated, but I still think he's going to be very much the underdog in this particular encounter, as he now gets us underway straight away, you're going to have your eyes full of the black there, making sure that that one will go towards the right corner. And we are still looking at an opportunity of taking the red away towards the left part of the table, because this is certainly the shot that Zhao is going to be going for a lot of times so far in the match. Let's see if he's going to be able to make this one in, and he will. So straight away, it just shows you that sometimes you can play a decent break-off shot, but it won't be enough to try and keep this man to be quiet. The first shot of the final, and of course for himself, he would be hoping that certainly the final is going to continue like this. For now, he plays another good shot on the black. Overrun for the red slightly, but shouldn't be too much of an issue. It depends on where the black is about to be respotted. And Zhao straight away being on the front foot, allowing himself to be the man to try and catch here when he comes down to the encounter of Chang Minyu. Still looking very carefully at the red, about to be taken in towards the right corner. And if he plays this one with a little bit of topspin, he may be able to just get around the black without getting too close to it, which is what he's trying to achieve. And in the end, didn't play that shot badly at all. Now that, as I say, he's got the black to be available, he does want to remove that red next to the black, because not only will it make the life of the black a lot easier to be aimed for into the right corner, but also makes the black available to be heading into the left corner as well, which is going to be a great boost for Zhao and ultimately for Chang Minyu as well, if he is to get another chance. For now, seems to be very unlikely with how well the opening shot was played, and how easy it would seem at this position is going to be for Zhao to get himself underway. Remember, made a century break in a match against Neil Robertson from the starting point off there, but you know, it took a while for him to get a century break against Xiao Guodong, but he's managed to finish with some really good play there. And he was trying to keep himself on the reds and the blacks, but I think that tendency is about to come to an abrupt end, because I think trying to barge one of those reds away from the path of the cue ball didn't really work out for him, and therefore he's going to have to try and go for the reds into the left part of the table to be taken. So then the cue ball is going to be played not for the pink but for the blue. I'll tell you what, I mean, as much as he is on the wrong side of a blue, I think he's pretty much perfect. Although he clearly disagrees with that. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you can see that the position of the cue ball doesn't really represent what's happening in the reality there when he comes down to the camera. And Zhao having a weird look behind himself. Clearly something was going on. We'll see what that was all about, maybe on the replay, but certainly seems to have caught his eye out there from the crowd, but whether he was someone trying to make his way into the arena or just someone making a lot of noise, it's hard to tell from this angle, but it's going to have to be the blue that he takes with a rest. So he needs to make this one in. He did make this one in, and now let's see where the cue ball's going to finish. Well, I think he's got a chance of playing the shot off the red into the yellow pocket, but that may be the best that he's capable of right now. Don't think he can get through to the red, past the pink with the cue ball. Good afternoon. Zhao seems to be overwhelming favourite from the chat. Well, it does seem to be the case, but you never quite know what's going to happen. And you always have to be very much cautious of those opening couple of frames. But as I say, I think Zhao is always going to have the edge, because I don't think he's going to care about the sort of stage that he's on and against. But I tell you what, well, last thing that he needed, and certainly last thing that Chang Minyu needed, was him dropping an almighty fluke, trying to pot a red with so much power into the yellow pocket, gone all the way along the side cushion and dropped into the left corner. Well, Chang Minyu can't complain too much about it. He had a fluke exactly like that against Ronnie O'Sullivan, but in the end, it was very much down to Zhao to be getting himself underway in, well, the most exotic style there, you have to say. He has to sit his season domination down. Well, we'll see what's going to happen, because for now, he's seemingly playing well, and if he's going to be getting flukes in as well, I think it could be a very short session, this one. But anyway, it will be, because by regulations, you have to play 9 frames. So I think it's going to be a lot quicker than the semi-final. Although, of course, it was a first to 9 frames, but I think the pure style of play for both of the players, but also the way they're going to approach some of those frames, not like it's the end of the world if you lose them. I think they're going to try and hold on to their momentum a lot more. And therefore, I think the matches are going to be a lot quicker when it comes down to a session breakdown, rather than what we've seen yesterday in those semi-finals, because both of them were above 3 hours. And of course, the 8-hour encounter between Zhao and Xiao Guodong has taken 3.5 hours, which was a long time for those two type of players. But in the end, the most important thing for Zhao Xington was that he came out victorious, and now an opportunity for the ping to be taken and get himself lined up for the frame ball in just 2 shots time there, because he's now 61 points clear. So still going for a 1-4-4, especially after running himself out of position on a couple of those shots, first on the blue, then on the red that he had to take after the blue. Managed to recover on the actual colour, but you can't really call that a recovery shot on the red, because he played that with too much power in the end for me, rattled it in jaws, and somehow the red has gone all the way and dropped into the left corner. So Zhao Xington's still keeping himself to be very much the man that hasn't actually spent a single frame to be losing, which is a very interesting stat there. He had a 4-0 lead against Jack Jones, so he obviously couldn't be losing that particular match. He had a 2-0 draw against Robertson, a 2-1 draw, a 2-1 advantage, I should say, and that was the closest that Hawkins managed to get to him, and then Robertson only got 1 frame of him. So, yeah, so far it is very much down to Zhao Xington, always to be in the lead or having an equal scoreline, but at this stage of asking, it does seem like he's going to have to settle for a break of 76 points, which is still going to be a very healthy advantage for him, because I don't think Zhao Xington is going to see Chang Minyu to be coming back to the table, but you never know. 67 points at the table, 3 snookers needed, but this is what I was talking about, the momentum. It's going to be interesting to see whether Chang Minyu is going to fancy his chances. I don't think he will, but you never quite know, since it's been the first frame. So he clearly wants to try and carry on, and that's his right and his decision. It's still perfectly reasonable, but the thing that doesn't really make it so reasonable is that he's going to have to try and pop 4 reds with the black, and then do a little bit of damage on snookers, which he's going to need 3 of if you exclude any chances of a free ball, which we've already seen in the first frame of the match in between Xiao Guodong and Zhao Xington yesterday. And of course, it was Zhao once again, with that perfect comeback, and Xiao Guodong just didn't have the answer to that particular comeback, and unfortunately for him had to come away with a very important frame loss. And I think it's now going to be a frame loss for Chang Minyu as well, because I don't think there's going to be, I'm surprised that he's carrying on here. 83 points of a deficit, 67 at the table, so he's 16 points not safe, and he's still apparently carrying on there because he didn't concede the frame, and of course he's going to be the free ball for good measure. So whether he's just down to showing some good sportsmanship and allowing Zhao Xington to go for yet another high-value break, because with the free ball that he gets, I don't think he's going to go for it actually, but he may be tempted to do that. No, he just pushes the brown onto the side cushion, but I think he's going to be... I have to say, I'm baffled that he's carrying on there. He's snookered. He's 83 points behind. 67 at the table. I don't know if I'm doing the maths wrong, but it certainly seemed like it's the wrong decision, but I suppose... Listen, it was his choice when he was 3 snookers down. Now he's 5 snookers down, with still 4 reds having to be potted. So a little bit interesting to see that from Minyu, because as I was saying, he does certainly come across as a guy that knows when to concede a frame, but it didn't seem like he knew that time. 84 points now is the lead, as Zhao Xington gets another 8, but he seemed like he's going to have to make a total clearance for Chang Minyu to finally concede this frame. He's playing the shot off the yellow, but let's see if this is going to be enough now. He won't be. I'll tell you what, maybe he's just trying to follow the example of O'Sullivan there a couple of years back, where, just tried to come back to the table and pot some balls there. But, interesting tactics there from Chang Minyu, but he still certainly thinks the frame is alive for him, or he's got maybe other targets to try and achieve. But anyway, 83 points down, 51 at the table, as he's about to cut the black into the corner. So surely it's just all down to getting himself a little bit of a snooker play under his belt. And then just making sure that he does still have a chance of coming back into this session before the main damage is done, because we've seen so many comebacks from being 2-0 down. Chang Min-yu managed to prevent one of those himself after winning a crucial frame number 5 against Ronnie O'Sullivan, and in the end just allowing himself to be very much a man to catch when it comes down to frames 8 and 9. And now then just having a look at the rate to be taken. As I said, I don't really think he's going to be focused on playing for snookers. I think it's going to be all down to just getting the cue ball to be running around the table, making sure that he scores some good points, and, playing for in behind the red here, trying to get that particular red into the open play, which he did, but didn't do that to a great extent. And now he's going to have a very difficult shot to be taken into either right middle, either yellow pocket, or of course the green pocket as well. Seems like he's going for the third option, which probably is the hardest for me, and he's missed it. So now it's going to be frame conceded. So once again, very interesting to see that from Bing Yu, but in the end he clearly felt like he needed that break of 24 points, but in the end it was a break of 60 points for Zhao Xington, or 76 I should say, that allowed him to be winning that first frame. And now straight away, it is going to be Zhao Xington 1, Chang Min-yu 0, and it is start the world champion rule liked. And, one interesting thing about him is that every single final that he's managed to win has been a different one, but also every single person that he's managed to beat in those finals has always been different. Yang Mintao, Zhao, no, not Zhao Wei, sorry. Maybe it was Zhao Wei once. Luca Brissell, Mark Williams, Zhang Anda, John Higgins, and Jia Trump. And now, of course, he's got a new opponent, very much again from China, to add to, the counter of the ones that he had beforehand, which he didn't have plenty of, you have to say, with only Bing Tao to be the one that he beat at the German Masters. But you have to say, it will be very much down to, I did say he can't really afford to be losing those couple of frames, because that's usually the story where, you have got that 2-0 deficit and then you're able to come back. But I feel like even if he's going to be able to come back, then, he just leaves so much room then, so much freedom for Zhao Xington that no matter what he does in frames number 3 and 4, he's still going to be in the lead there. That's a very dangerous mentality to have when you're Zhao Xington. And of course, it's a very positive mentality to have for him, because all of a sudden, at that stage, he may find himself in a position where, if he goes for a long red like that in the first frame, I mean, okay, he's had a fluke midway through the break, but apart from that, the break was flawless. And if he's going for long shots like that in the first frame, whilst he doesn't have an advantage, you can only imagine what type of shots is he going to be going for. And nobody tells you that he ain't going to make them when he's got a 2 or a 3-0 lead, because that's just going to be a whole different reality there. And unfortunately for Chang, whether it's a first to 10, whether it's a first to 18, as Mark Williams will tell you, it doesn't really matter. If Zhao Xington gets his form underway, especially with the way that Chang Min-yu and Zhao Xington are pretty much twins when it comes down to their style of play. It's just one is a lot stronger and bigger than the other in relation to, the achievement, the experience, and the actual technique they have. And if you allow Xington to be away, playing better than your opponent, I think it's very unlikely you'll see both of the players playing well. And therefore, I think Chang is going to have to hope for a drop-off. For now, he's still going to hope for a chance in the second frame. Because listen, all of that becomes irrelevant if all of a sudden Chang Min-yu wins his second frame. But should he give that 2-0 two-frame lead away to Zhao Xington, then he will certainly find himself to be experiencing troubles. And, he doesn't really want to be doing that for now. So we'll see what's going to happen. Chang Min-yu is looking to try and take the red away, but not doing that in the aggressive fashion, which probably wasn't really surprising given the position of the black. But ultimately now he's going to come down to a chance of playing those reds away from each other. And give a chance away for Zhao Xington to either bring the black into the open play, which probably is not going to happen at this stage. So we'll see. 9-9, I could predict up to game 18. Chang sitting on highest break price, coffee money. Well, listen, it may be coffee money there, but I still think for a tournament like Wuhan Open, 75,000 for the finalist, it's not a lot there if you think about it. especially if you think about the heavyweights of Saudi. And even the China Open was a lot more than that. But I think, Wuhan Open has got a lot more history. Well, not a lot more history, but right now it's probably a bigger tournament than China Open because of the second one coming back. But 10,000 worth of prize money in pound sterling is still going to be a nice addition there, because you only get 75,000, as I say. 10-6 is Jeffrey. Well, I assume that's going to be in favour of Zhao Xington. As I say, I haven't really seen anyone say that Chang Minyu is going to win. But we'll have to wait and see if he's going to be able to prove all of us wrong. But now he's certainly trying to do something interesting here. Is he trying to play an attacking shot on the plant? He was. And I tell you what, if the cue ball pulls up in time, he may be able to get himself a perfect opportunity in this second frame. And he has pulled up in time. So Chang Minyu has managed to play a shot out of nowhere. And not only has he now found himself to be on the collar, but look at the way that he's managed to spread the reds away from each other. That's certainly the way to develop those reds. And the only issue he's got, well, two issues, but one being more relevant than the other, is that he's going to have to try and push the cue ball past the brown here when he goes for a shot on the green. Doesn't want it to get stuck to the brown. So let's see. Well, he didn't really manage to achieve that. And unfortunately, all that work on the previous shot is about to be undone, because here, Zhao Xington is going to be walking to the table with a wide smile on his face and saying, "Thank you very much. I'll most certainly take this red away into the right middle. And then I'm going to have this beautiful position all to myself." Or maybe he doesn't feel like that red into the middle is his best possible chance. But, as I said, how many reds Chang Minyu has managed to spread away from each other? He's got plenty of options. Let's see what Chang Minyu is going to think about it. Well, you can see that on the camera. Perfect shot there from Zhao Xington. Look at how well he's managed to get himself lined up for the brown. And here, the previous miss on the green from Chang has made his life even more difficult, because the pink was one of the problems for either one of the players that was at the table. But the green has found his way towards the pink. And all of a sudden, the pink seems to be a lot more, located in freedom than he was before that shot on the green. So still, as I say, there's no need to panic for the neutrals, but there is maybe a need to panic for Chang Minyu fans, because so far, no mistakes apart from that long rate that was supposed to be missed from Zhao Xington, but it didn't really work out on that particular occasion. And now we'll see just how well he's going to be able to try and treat this particular break, because so far, when he comes down to the positional play, once again, excluding that red that he didn't play well for, but he had reasons for it because he was so awkwardly lined up from the blue. And I think for him to be anywhere near that red was an achievement in itself. So now then, this is going to be the real test, and the opening phase of this break is going to be the most important one, because, as I say, for now, he just needs to make sure he sorts out the position of the green and the pink, which means getting the green away from here and getting the pink back on its own spot. I think you play that shot really, really well, because all of a sudden now, he's got a great chance of trying to separate the reds away from the pink, put the pink back onto its own spot, and then make sure that he's going to be able to take the break from there as well. So then 14 points of a lead, and still a chance here for Zhao Xington to be playing a red away and into the right corner. Let's see how well he's going to be able to hold this one back there when he comes down to the pace. And the answer wasn't bad for him. Still playing for the pink. Here to be taken towards the left middle. And probably trying to hold the cue ball back there from any sort of unnecessary power injection. And he's trying to hold the power away by using the other red to be cannoned into. So now he's pretty much sorted out all of his issues but one. And it's still probably one of the most important things, which he can live his life without, but it'll make his life a lot more difficult to do that. And that, of course, is going to be the black, connected so closely to the red. And I think he's going to have to try and deal with the pink first in relation to getting those two reds away from the pink, even though they're not necessarily intervening with the pink being potable, but they're still causing a little bit of issue for any sort of maneuvers there for the cue ball to be getting around the pink and the remaining reds at the table. So for now, just carefully play that shot away and into the left corner. So for now, as I say, he doesn't really do small breaks there, Zhao Xington, apart from, of course, the single point that he scored in the previous frame. But at that point the frame was over, and he clearly had absolutely no motivation to be doing anything else in that frame, because he couldn't make a century break and couldn't do anything else with it either. When it comes down to doing extra damage, all the damage was done in that previous frame, and now, purely because of that mistake from Chang Minyu at the starting point of the frame, it does seem like the damage is about to be done here as well. Because remember, Zhao Xingtong is going through all the easy raids first, and there are going to be some really difficult ones for Chang Minyu to try and manage. But I think the bottom line is, Zhao Xingtong is going to have more than enough of those reasonable raids that he can try and pot, that are inevitably going to take him over the finish line when it comes down to trying to win this match in visits like this. But of course, for now, he's going to have to be focused on the frame, and seems to be doing a pretty good job of it as well, having to play his second rest shot in the 3 previous occasions that he had to take. So still, once again, this is where, he might need to go for the extension. He clearly thought about it for a second, but in the end, he's going to need it now. The height probably being one of these slight disadvantages there, and that, of course, is always going to compromise him on rest shots, because, when you can't reach it and you make it uncomfortable for yourself, well, you had to extend the rest, but where did that come from? I mean, he did have to extend the rest, but I didn't think it was going to be anywhere near missing that raid, trying to power it in. Well, that didn't really work. And now the break of 43 points is going to be the end of Zhao Xingtong, which is not going to be too happy with himself, but listen, as I say, there's plenty of issues there for Chang Minyu, but, that raid has caused a little bit of chaos at the table. So it's interesting to see on what he's done in relation to those raids. And, of course, Chang Minyu will need every single one of them. May need even some of the ball colours as well to try and win the frame. But in relation to the raids, I mean, if you think about it, he's only got 2 of them that are in a bad position right now. There were 3 before that shot, so still seems like Zhao Xingtong has made a bit of a mess with that. But yeah, very surprising mistake on that raid that he's taken into the corner, or at least attempted to try and pot. Didn't really work out in the outcome of it, and now there will be a great chance for Chang Minyu to try and get himself, if not back in the match, then certainly back in the frame. And therefore, try and put himself right back in the mix for the match contention as well, should he be able to find a total clearance here, which of course probably is going to be something that is required, or somewhat near required, for him to try and win the frame, because he still needs to try and work his way through those reds, and he played a really good shot there. It was always going to be slightly lower on the black than he wanted, but ultimately now, one of those difficult reds is now fully into play. So that's one of the 2 issues that he's had, and of course, bringing the black into the play quite early in the break, he's certainly going to help his chances as well, so we'll see if that's going to be the case. But he's still looking to try and play the black very carefully away and into the left corner. And he's undercut that one, unfortunately for him. Let's see what the cube is going to finish. He won't finish in an easy position, but it's still going to be reasonable enough there for Zhao Xingtong to come back to the table and still be very much approaching the finish line here. So a couple of chances for Chang Minyu in this particular frame. He had 1 chance in the previous frame, but didn't really, not really a chance, because the frame was killed before he sort of came back to the table. But he certainly had 2 more or less good opportunities in this frame. One more difficult than the other. But at the same time now, it doesn't seem like he'll stop Zhao Xingtong after he's taken a good red along the side rail. Now finds himself to be 41 points clear with 59 at the table, which means he needs 2 more reds. And then it'll be game over for Chang Minyu, and unfortunately for him, he won't be able to win any one of those 2 opening frames, which I did anticipate. I take no credit for it though. As I say, the first one was very much fluke influenced, and the second frame was down to, Chang Minyu being quite wasteful with his own opportunities, which, remember, he was the one that had the first chance to score some points in this frame, and after, missing out on the red, he just didn't manage to recover from that. And of course, Zhao Xingtong came back to the table, very keen to try and put the struggles of, the past behind him. And now managing to be 48 points clear with 51 at the table. So then, this red at the right corner is going to be the frame ball. And it does remind you a little bit of the shot that he missed with the rest, but, It is going to be a little bit further for him to reach, but also the red is going to be a little bit closer towards the pocket. But we'll see. If he missed it before, he can miss it again. I think he's going to try and take the power away there, although he still flicked that one with considerable amount of pace. And he's now going to be getting himself lined up for the pink, which will eliminate any sort of chances there for Chang Minyu to be coming back to the table here and making sure that he will be down to Zhao Xington to have the first blood in this match to be extended to the second frame as well. And it's now going to be a 2-0 lead there. If Chang Minyu was coming back to the table in the previous frame, I don't think the story will repeat itself here, because the gap of 55 points here, 43 at the table. As soon as that red disappears, which it will be very much down to Zhao Xington just trying to get himself closer towards the total clearance and just make it seem like it was possible there for Chang Minyu, had he been the player, to try and, play that shot well enough on the black, but didn't quite manage to execute the cut. And in the end, it won't be a positional shot which Zhao Xington is going to be happy about, but at the same time, he tried to double the red. He didn't play that shot well, and he will be down to a gap of 61 points at the end. He will be down to 70 points to 9 of Zhao Xington. And once again, it is Zhao Xington that takes yet another frame away from Chang Minyu, and now leaves himself with a 2-0 over gap there to try and take it away from Chang Minyu out there. I don't know why. Sorry, I know why. I had the tab open, which was saying 3-0 there for Zhao Xington, but that, of course, was the previous match they've played. The only match they've played in their career came at the Championship League, and he finished with 3 frames to 0 over to Zhao Xington, so he certainly was able to win that match, and now doesn't seem to be too far away from repeating the same scoreline, although, of course, very different stage, and, 4 months later, so 4 years later, I should say, very different story for both of them. A lot they had to go through for different reasons, but at the same time, now having to try and find themselves at the peak of their game, certainly when it comes down to the results, not necessarily when it comes down to Chang Minyu's performance though, because he's still struggling to get himself anywhere near the level that Zhao Xington has been producing so far, and in the end, it will be very much Zhao to have that, the lead of 2 frames to 0, and we'll see if he's going to be able to try and hold on to that one as well. For now, it doesn't seem like he's doing too bad of a job, but we'll have to wait and see on what's actually going to happen a little bit later on as well. You feel like out there will still be room for improvement when it comes down to Zhao Xington and Chang Minyu, of course, but I think it's a little bit of a different level that, because if you talk about Zhao Xington, even though he's not necessarily playing his best snooker, he's still going to find himself to be within that window where he can only improve and become a better player. But at this stage, it still seems like he's in absolute cruise control when it comes down to winning those particular frames. So we'll see what's going to happen. But at the same time, I still think there is a long way to go for Chang before he can try and get himself right back in the match. But of course, as we've seen it before, and this tournament included, sometimes it can change very quickly indeed. And you are going to find yourself in that position where you will be challenging for that momentum to be swinging your way. I love these Chinese events. My time zone isn't far off. Yeah, I can't say I love them because it is a little bit awkward to be getting up at 6 o'clock every time there. But I did miss out on the first 3 days. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I suppose 4 days is not that bad. But I suppose on the other hand, you don't really get up in the morning for those first couple of rounds, because you only get up for the afternoon or the evening session. Depends if you count it as Europe time zone or the Chinese one. But tell you what, once again, a break-off shot from Chang Minyu that wasn't the one that he's going to be proud of. And a long shot available. We know what that usually means, but it doesn't mean it this time. The long shot was missed, but I felt like you probably need him to be missing a couple of long shots, I have to say. Even though I am on Team Zhao Xington, but I don't really wish him to win too badly out there. And I do want to see a bit of a performance here from Chang Minyu in relation to, you always want to be the match to be a little bit closer, especially if you don't really support one of the players, which, as I say, I would like Xington to be in the final, but when it comes down to the final itself, I wouldn't really care if he's going to win it or not. I just really like to see at least 10 or more frames of action featuring Zhao Xington because of his ability to play the game in a really good manner there, with Chang Minyu sometimes is able to counter, but once again, I think the experience, or rather the absence of the experience, may still play a crucial role in this match. And so far, maybe that's been the case, but whatever it was down to, Chang Minyu just hasn't settled into the match. Made 2 errors in the previous frame. Got unlucky in frame number 1, but at the same time, he's had time to try and put that behind him. And he certainly is going to need this trade, because even if he's going to be going at 3-1 down at the intermission, it already feels like a massive advantage for him to hold on to. And of course, if he is to go 3-0 down, then he is going to have a bit of a do-or-die frame in relation to the 4th one, because if he finds himself 4-0 down for the first time since, Ronnie O'Sullivan had a 4-0 lead against Chipchaya, but of course he managed to lose that particular final. So we'll see what's going to happen. But for now, Chang Minyu just playing one red into the other was never going to work out to be a perfect outcome for him, but it seemed like it's worked out way below average, because not only has he managed to bring the black into the open play, but he's also, the rate that he's cannon into the other red has now gone not over, but quite close to the left middle. And Zhao has been taking those shots for fun. He had no pressure on him, but he didn't need to have contact with the brown. And unless he can see enough of that brown, he has messed that one up a little bit. And you can see his reaction probably suggests that that is certainly the case. But he's still going to have a bit of advantage there, because I think if he plays a reasonable shot with backspin, just stuns the cue ball in behind the green, which he has done really well. Once again, his ability to work with the angles, because he could have easily just played that shot in a straight line, which would have been the shot that I've played it, but, he managed to eke out an extra couple of centimeters there towards the green, and even though it doesn't seem like he's managed to cover the side cushion, but still making the life of Chang Minyu that a little bit more tricky. And now, Chang is going to have to make a decision on just which one of those reds does he go for. But I think it's an easy decision. The left part of the bunch, because it doesn't really have any risks of leaving a red away, because I think the red above the black won't go into the corner. Although Chang Minyu is probably the only one that knows for certain. But he didn't have to worry about that one. He played the cue ball really, really well. Judged the pace and judged the line even better. And now it will come down to that advantage being very much wiped out there from Zhao Xington, and back down to just an ordinary safety play to be seeing in between the players. And with a couple of raids at the top part of the table, it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting anywhere anytime soon. For now, we will be down to a chance for Chang Minyu to be playing the cue ball away from those reds, and he's going to try and do that through the side cushion. Of course, nowhere near a touch and ball, so he's just going to try and carefully take that pace away from the white. But always a problem with those type of shots there. What you don't really know if you are going to leave a white touch and ball. And let's see, Zhao Xington is the one looking at the top part of the table. Still feels there is gap for him to try and squeeze the cue ball onto the top hand side of it. I don't think he's going to be playing an aggressive shot here. But, it was always going to be an aggressive shot in relation to trying to move on from that particular type of play and get the cue ball to be at the top end of the table. But what I meant is actually playing an attempt of potting the red. But he still played a really good safety. And now down to Chang to try and respond with a safety of his own. Probably through the reds next to the blue there. Just trying to take it alongside the pink. Oh, he's tried to cut that one in. He's overcut it somehow. And once again, yet another mistake into the right middle. And this time around, it doesn't seem to be the one which will cost him dearly. But as I say, it still all comes down to whether the same red is possible there for Zhao Xington. He's certainly keeping his eyes on that red, which would suggest that he does pot, because it's not really the only option that he's got ahead of him. But it seems to be the only option that he's considering to try and play. And in the end, even though he dropped a little bit of a side cushion there, a little bit of a jaw of the middle, he still drops the red in. But the problem for him is that he has completely run himself out of position because of how, thick he'd taken that red away. So I think he's going to have to be forced into taking the brown into the left middle. But I have to say, it's a difficult shot there for him to be taking on. But once again, the pace just kills the shot there on the brown. And even though there was a little brush of the front jaw, he still doesn't help Chang Minyu. And nothing seemed like it's going to be able to help him on this particular occasion, as Zhao Zitong keeps on finding those shots to get him out of trouble. And even though the positional play is not necessarily firing on all cylinders, once again, apart from that only shot that he missed in the first frame, or supposed to be missing, certainly when it comes down to the designated pocket, he's been flawless with that. When I kind of watch live from India, I think you should be able to do that on WSD Play. So you should get the subscription and you should be able to watch it from there. Now then, a chance for the cue ball to get into the reds, but this is when, remember the red that I mentioned above the black there, which I said Chang Min-yu might not have to worry about. Well, this is the question. Does it go past the black into the corner? It seems like he will. So then a chance for the white to be taken towards the pink, but in the end, a little bit too much rattle in the jaws, and a little bit pacey that shot was, even though it was close for comfort. It's not going to be enough there for Zhao Zitong to squeeze that red into the corner, and Chang Min-yu will get a chance to be coming back to the table with a break of 10 points there from Zhao Zitong, and at the end, a really good opportunity for the red to be taken into the corner. Didn't play that shot too comfortably. Let's see if it's going to compromise him on the blue. He won't. Still a good position to be top side of the blue right now. Trying to take that one away and into the left corner. So we'll see what's going to happen here then, as he's still looking to try and just dump the cue ball for the red to be taken in towards the right corner. Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens, but it's probably going to be down to a decent opportunity for the cue ball to be played towards the right side cushion. He decided just to hold that one in the middle of the table, which you probably can't say was the wrong decision out there. As it's now going to be 11 points, play 6 for Zhao Zitong's advantage. And now he's got the opportunity of trying to go for the red in towards the right corner. Still needs to be careful of those type of shots, not necessarily down to missing out on the red, but playing the shot that he has was a very important factor there, because now not only has he managed to get himself the position on the black, which I thought was essential, but also wasn't an easy task for him to complete, but also he's got a couple of reds to be in open play, and all of a sudden he does find himself to be in that position. The WEST channel, I assume, of course, TNT in India. No, there won't be TNT in India because that's very much down to the UK platform. Trump held their world ranking for the 52 months, but I would have bet against the Cyclone going beyond that. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit confused. Wouldn't bet against the Cyclone. This is when your English is not really to the level that it should be. So what do you mean? Is he going to last 52 months or more? I wouldn't bet against the Cyclone going beyond that. Okay, so you say that he's going to do it. Okay, it genuinely had me worried there, because I think what you're saying is he's going to stay there longer than 52 months. Okay, it took me 52 working weeks to try and figure that one out, but we got there in the end. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's an interesting one, because, it comes down to Zhao Zitong to have 500,000 worth of ranking points, which he needs a gap of, because he's got Selby, Trump, Weezer, and Robertson all to be on his heels. And yes, Robertson will lose 500,000 of ranking points, but for now, Zhao Zitong is going to lose 500,000 worth of ranking points before Robertson. And that, of course, is going to be down to the Crucible campaign. So, depending on how good of a season he has, I think this tournament is going to be massive as well, because if he wins it, that's 100,000 extra to what he's got right now. As Chang Min-yu plays a really good shot there to get those reds away from the cue ball, but also getting himself to a line of playing the red towards the left part of the table. So a very careful shot on the red. And now a chance for Chang Min-yu to finally finish off the work there when he comes down to getting himself a frame. And once again, the 2-0 lead just seems like it's a very bad omen when it comes down to frames 3 and 4, because I can only think about the match in between Zhao Zitong and Jack Jones, where we had a 4-0 lead rather than a 2-0 scoreline, because it always seems like whoever's losing 2-0 always wins the third frame, and then always got a great chance of winning the fourth frame as well. Sorry, people on my phone can't translate. You have to translate yourselves. Yes, absolutely, Letitia. Make them work for it. You're not obliged to be doing that. Your contract hasn't been signed yet. And tell you what, Chang Min-yu may be able to sign a new contract, because he's certainly going to be getting a lot more of sponsorship deals if he's going to be able to win this tournament, of course, especially since, the type of opposition Ronnie O'Sullivan, Judd Trump, and Zhao Xington in the same bracket. I mean, if you talk about the man facing a challenge, I don't think there is going to be a challenge in the world snooker bigger than that, especially since, I think his performance against Trump was brilliant. I think his performance against O'Sullivan wasn't great, but, I suppose he beat him, and that's the only thing that matters. And I think it won't really take a bad performance to beat Zhao Xington, especially when it comes down to a ranking final. Seems to be going a lot better in frame number 3, though, as he's now 43 points clear with 67 at the table. So still an opportunity to try and get the cue ball away from those reds to be taken towards the blue. So then 54 points right now is the lead. And you're going to try and extend that to 49, which would mean, of course, the next red in the colour combination will be the end of Zhao Xington in this particular frame. And very impressive to see just how quickly things can turn around there, because Zhao seemed like he got the, this opening struggle phase out of the way there, but after not being able to take that red away, Chang Minyu has been flawless ever since that stage, but you have to feel like that red could have easily made the gap to be 3-0. In the end, that won't be the case. And now a gap of 57 points. He's going to be good enough for Chang Minyu to get the gap down to just a single frame there in between himself and his opponent. Great match this. Yeah, not bad for so far. I think we needed this frame to be taken from Chang Minyu from the neutral's point of view. And, I wouldn't say no to a little century break if he does make one. 76 right now. Zhao Xington is apparently world number 1 already, but on Google in the rankings says Trump is still world number 1, which is very confusing. Yeah, because they can't officially update the rankings until the tournament is over, but there's no point for me to be showing you the same rankings throughout the same tournament. So what I am showing you is the live rankings. So if nobody was able to win the final, which of course is not the way it works, then you would have 1,200,000 worth of ranking points for Zhao Xington and 200,000 worth of ranking points for Chang Minyu. But one of them will be able to get an extra 100,000 based off who's going to be the winner. But there's not really a reason for me to say, well, they started on 160,000 for Chang and 1.1 million for for Zhao Xington, and that's going to be the same way for the whole tournament, rather than showing you what is actually there right now. But yeah, listen, Chang Minyu started that third frame in a horrible fashion. Zhao Xington started with some brilliant shots there as well, but in the end just came a little bit short on one of those reds, which allowed Chang Minyu to be coming back to the table, played some great shots in between, and now was able to level up the highest break value as well. Could be a classic, well, it could be. So, as I say, trust this ranking system, because that will show you the way that things were before the Wuhan Open started. But they've got a new feature on WSD, which I really, really like, which shows you live rankings with all the maths, with all the ranking points that you lose for 2 years of your worth of tournaments, but also for the points that you've been able to score in this tournament already. So it's a really nice way, but yeah, trust me when I tell you, it is now going to be the reign of the world number 1. How long is it going to be? It's going to be another question. I think it'll probably take more than just winning a British Open there, unless Robertson has a wonderful campaign. And by the way, interesting to see if you think that these two players will be playing at the British Open, because of course, surprise, surprise, breaking news everyone, Ronnie O'Sullivan has withdrawn from British Open. And in other news, that's been always the obvious. But yeah, let's just hope that even though, and actually, especially because the British Open draw is a blind draw, I feel like you want to keep as many seeds as you can, especially since so far we had 6 finalists, all 6 of them to be different. And, it was a very similar story in last season as well, because if you remember last season, we had Karen Wilson against Ali Carter, then we had Ronnie O'Sullivan against Neil Robertson. And then, of course, we had, the matching between Gary Wilson and Xiao Guodong. A lot more players from China this time around, but at the same time, well, I say a lot more players, 2 more players, because we've got Zhao Xington and Chang Minyu to be the first 2 players to reach the final from China so far. Should Jimmy White retire? Well, it's a question mark to him, because, listen, if Ken Doherty has decided to retire, then I think Jimmy White has said, he's going to play until the end of this season and then decide for himself if he would have... Well, he said if he wins the ranking event, which I think he is a little bit miles away from that, but that is about as unfortunate as he can get from Chang Min-yu, because what a shot that he's played on the red, and how unlucky can you be to be getting that cue ball, to be getting just a minor flick of the red, and in the end, ending up perfectly into the middle of the table. So, it's a chance now, which is going to come back to Zhao Xington here, to go for a long red of his choice. He's got one into the left corner, or one into the right corner to be taken, but he's clearly got his eyes on the red into the right part of the table, which, for him, clearly feels like he'll be able to get the cue ball past and onto the blue. Brilliantly taken on the shot. I tell you what, that was lucky. He is going to have to apologise for that one. Checking the pink goes into the middle, but, well, sometimes when you get the ball run, it all seems to be going your way. A fluke in the previous frame, and now, of course, such a massive misfortune for Chang Min-yu to be dropping the cue ball. And, well, now 11 points of a lead, and still getting himself with a great chance of extending that lead from 2 frames to 1 to having a 3-1 cushion before the intermission. And, of course, at that stage, it's going to be a healthy lead for him to try and hold on to. But at the same time, I think he's been playing more than well enough, you know, when he comes down to be deserving that lead. But whether it comes down to, you know, has Chang Min-yu actually deserved to be 3-1 down, I think that's going to be a little bit of a different issue. So we'll see what's going to happen. But at the same time, the referee's now just sorting out the pink very carefully indeed. And now, you know, Zhao is going to have to come back towards trying to score some more points. Interesting to see the way that he's got the reds and the colours to be available to him, as he's still looking at the blue to be taken into the middle. So he could try and just, you know, unsettle the reds away from each other in no time at all if he wants to, but he decided not to be doing that in the end. So just a very careful shot on the red to be taken towards the right part of the table, which still leaves him with a couple of options there to try and choose from, because now he's got the black to be available to him. He's got a chance of trying to take the red away to the right corner. And, I mean, playing for the black is going to be a very important thing, but at the same time, it's quite a difficult mission for him as well, because now he's going to have to try and play the black into the right corner whilst making sure that the red that he cannons into is going to be the one that he's got available. But in the end, it's a second mistake there that we've seen from Zhao Xington in no time at all, and all of a sudden, it is now going to have to be an opportunity which is going to be wasted yet again there from Xington. You know, the red into the same pocket that he missed. And now all of a sudden, you know, the black of the spot that he wasn't able to take full advantage of, clearly focused too much on trying to control the power, but also control the line that the cue ball was taken into the path of the red. Didn't really work out too well on either one of those instances, because the red that he's left for Chang Min-yu is not necessarily an easy one, but he played that one really, really well. And I don't think the red has touched the sides there, which was twice as important and twice as impressive there as the actual shot that he was able to get into the corner pocket. So the question has to come down to whether Chang Min-yu wants to buy a bit of a lottery ticket with a 50% of a chance. Does he want to send the cue ball into the reds right here, right now? I think he will. Let's see if he's going to be on one. Well, surprised that he's taken the power away, but in the end, it may be the thing that saved him if he's got a shot into the middle, because if you played that shot with more power, you feel like the cue ball would have been a lot further away from the reds, but also there would have been more reds and more distance in between the reds. So let's see if he's got one into the right middle. I don't know why I'm feeling that he might be trying to cut this red in towards the left middle, which will give him a great chance of getting this frame on the board. And I'll tell you what, we certainly do have a bit of a scoring match on our hands, because now Chang Min-yu has managed to respond with his own chance creations there to very much taking advantage of those mistakes from Zhao Xington. And even though he wasn't able to exploit maximum points out of those long shots that he was taking in the previous frames, but still, you know, trying to recover some good points there from mistakes of Zhao Xington. It was really something that he wasn't able to do in the first 2 frames. And yeah, it's now going to be down to a chance of playing the black away and into the right corner. So then just very careful when he comes down to plenty of topspin that he needs to adjust. Well, that wasn't really going to do the work there for him. And unfortunately, Apologies for that. It just seems like it's all going off. Just biting the tongue. Just drop the mic. What's going to happen next? Hopefully the monitor won't fall off. But yeah. Seems like Chang Min-yu has run himself out of position slightly there. So it won't really be the situation that he's going to be proud of. But ultimately he's got still a couple of options there to try and recover from. Because, you know, that depends on his alternate income streams. Yeah, I suppose it's... You know, for Jimmy White, it's an interesting one really, because if you think about the ranking points and obviously the prize money that he would have won, it's not going to be necessarily so impressive. There's a really good shot there from Chang Min-yu. Leaves a shot on the blue to be available to him. So just trying to take that one carefully well towards the left middle, play the cue ball away and towards the left side cushion, which he played their shot pretty well once again. So then now... looking to try and take that cue ball into the red. So managed to recover really well with that previous plant, which, you know, he sort of put himself in that position. But at the same time, you know, he was able to recover, which was the most important thing, because he wasn't really down to, you know, leaving this position available to Zhao Xington, but it was down to, if you take a plant away like that, you either pot it or you're going to be leaving a red over the corner pocket. So we'll see. But yeah, I think for Jimmy White, it's probably going to be down to, you know, sponsorship things as well, if not the main thing, because, you know, as I say, he doesn't really have a lot of prize money to speak for it, but, you know, he has been very much the expert on TNT for a while, although I do have to say it's been a while since I've seen him on there, with the main cast still being in there or thereabouts. But yeah, talking about Chang Min-yu, it does seem like he is getting some good shots in, but he's not really making any advantage of the position for now in relation to, he's not getting any further into trying to get more reds into the open play. That was the shot to try and make it, and now the question is he on the black there? Doesn't seem to be the case, which, well, doesn't seem to be any panic in his eyes, but he's got 3 shots there to choose from. Neither one is perfect because he can't see the black, so that's out of the picture. The pink is very thin, and the blue is a long shot there to be taken. So the referee there just asking the audience to be quiet, or maybe calling a blue ball there, whatever he said. Can't really hear from now. So then a massive shot on the blue. He needs this one to go in, and he didn't. Way too much power to have any sort of control, but look at that for a fluke. Well, you can't say that wasn't deserved, but you also can't say that he's going to win him a lot of points there, you feel. What a fluke that is. I mean, that is a massive slice of luck that he had. Blue being missing out on the yellow pocket by a mile, comes all the way towards the red. He feels like he's going to go into the pocket before he touches the red, completely changes the line after he's taken the red away, and then completely changes the line again, cannoning into the pink, and off the pink it goes perfectly into the right corner. So then now, there is a chance for Chang Min-yu to be playing a shot off the red and into the right corner. I mean, it's once again, I think it's not really going to be down to, you know, leaving the cue ball down the lower end of the table, especially since he's going to be, you know, looking for a very difficult cut to be taken now in towards the right part of the table. No surprise that that's going to be missed. So in the end, that fluke has only given him 5 extra points, but still, he certainly did give it a chance to of getting the red away from the open play there, because remember, the red that he cannoned into, the blue, was very much down to be available one for Zhao Xington to be trying to pot, and into the right corner it would have went, but that wasn't the case at the end. And now 16 points of a lead for Chang Min-yu is going to be the lead that he'll try to hold on to for the rest of the frame, and hopefully for him to try and extend in the foreseeable future as well. And there's a chance that he's got of trying to extend that lead. Once again, Zhao Xington not seeing the safety shots to be, you know, the greatest thing that he's ever done, but at the end of it all, it will be down to a chance of trying to play the red away into the left corner. But he needs to be very, very careful when he comes down to a topspin shot. Play that shot well. Let's see how good is going to be the position for him. Not great, but not terrible. I think it's probably going to be rather great than terrible here, because, you know, if he can go for the blue, I think his life's sorted in relation to this particular frame, because he's got 3 reds to be in a straight line to be taken into the right corner, but he's also got 1 red to try and get him out of trouble, and it's the red that he's gone for right now, which probably is understandable, but at the same time, it will all be down to a chance of getting the black away with a bit more freedom, and then getting more room for the cue ball to travel onto the remaining 3 reds as well. So then there's a chance of playing the cue ball away past the red, just bounce it away from the side cushion, and get himself to be positioned for the blue to be taken towards the right corner as well. So 23 points is now the lead, and he's still thinking about the chance of, well, he does find himself to be in a little bit of a no man's land there, because if he can see the pink, he's got a long way to go there for the cue ball to be put into the right position, but at the same time, he just needs to analyse where the pink is going to come back onto, and I think that's what he's doing. So clearly doesn't fancy taking the blue on into the right middle or into the green pocket, so he's going to have to try and cut the pink away and into the right corner, but I think the main damage is going to have to be done towards the positional play there. So let's see how well the cue ball is going to be lined up. So indeed, he feels the red, the lowest of the 3, is going to be available into the left corner. So 29 points is the lead. If you are going to have the opportunity of playing the red away and into the left corner, then you do have a great chance of finally getting this frame on the board. And yeah, certainly I think the average shot time has improved and increased massively, actually. Not improved, because I think the improvement is when, you know, you're making those shots in with as little time as you can while still getting the best possible results for yourself. But yeah, he certainly, I think, suggests that Chang Min-yu realises where he is, where he's at, and what sort of situation Zhao Xington has found himself at as well, where 2 mistakes for him in those 2 frames seem like they may well be the only mistakes that Chang Min-yu needs to try and, you know, take that 2-0 of a lead from Zhao Xington into a potential of a 3-0 lead as well. Now, all of a sudden, he's now going to be 3 shots away or so from making this to be a 2-2 draw at the intermission, and still making it very much a showdown for him to be a part of as well. Now needs the cue ball to be as close to those reds as he can, and the question is, was he playing for the cue ball to be in that part of the table? Because you would have felt like there wasn't really a lot of reason for him to be so close towards those reds, but, you know, maybe there was. And maybe that's the reason why he had to be so close towards those reds, because of how, you know, not really awkwardly, but they're not looking at the center of the pocket there. So he had to make a minor correction, which he was able to produce, and now being 36 points clear, he's got the pink to be taken for a 42 points of a lead, and then the next red will be a frame ball, and from 2-0 down, from a chance from Zhao Xington to be 3-0 up as well, he will be coming down to Chang Min-yu to be able to win those 2 remaining frames. And yet again, in this encounter for the tournament, it will be the scoreline of 2 frames each as soon as that red disappears, which he will. And now we will be down to 43 points of a lead. How many intermissions will there be if this final goes the distance? There will be 2. 1 in the first session, 1 in the second session. Obviously a mid-session break as well. But we're about to have the first one here. And it will be after a break of 32 points and counting there. So similar number of points that we've seen from Chang Min-yu and Zhao Xington in total. And you have to say the highest break being shared there in between the 2 players as well. I think that's going to be good enough for Zhao Xington not to be coming back to the table. Although that doesn't seem to be the case. I'm surprised with that, you know. 48 points behind. 35 at the table, but he does find himself to be a lot of the points behind there. So, as I say, it's a bit of a surprising one there from Zhao Xington to feel like he's still got a chance of coming back to the table. But we'll see what he's going to be able to produce with this raid. As I say, it won't be the first time that he's managed to steal a frame like that. And once again, plays a really good attempt of getting that cue ball in behind the yellow. And all of a sudden, well, 48 points or not, it is always going to be a chance there for Zhao Xington to try and get a free ball here. A free ball with a foul, then there is going to be a chance for him to try and achieve that as well. But he is looking at the left side cushion to be taken there, which needs to be mindful of. The red is very close towards the black, and he needs to make sure he won't be going for the black or too close to it. Oh, just about catches the black there, which does change the situation completely, because I'm pretty sure he didn't touch the red. I'm not sure the foul has been called there, but, you know, it certainly felt like that was a foul. although still waiting for a confirmation on the scoreboard. And, well, interesting to see that, because if Chang Minyu felt like he caught the red, then, yeah. I mean, officially the scoreboard says exactly the same thing that I've seen, so it will be down 7 points to be given away to Zhao Xingtong, and ultimately here, it does change the mentality of his approach for the remainder of the frame, and this time around, he just about catches the red with a minor angle, so he's now going to be 41 points ahead. So still, one snooker needed, plus a free ball there for Zhao Xingtong, but at the same time, of course, there is actually value in trying to play on from here, you would feel. And there is still going to be an opportunity here for Chang Minyu to try and get himself out of trouble after not a perfect shot there from Zhao Xingtong, and ultimately a chance to be getting the cue ball away and into the red. Well, didn't really work too well there when he comes down to putting the cue ball safe, but I suppose it doesn't really have to worry about that one too much. And if anything, that extra pace that he had on the white has allowed the cue ball now to be lined up for the red with the blue in the middle. So Zhao Xingtong is actually the player having to get himself out of a snooker situation. So a very careful brush of the red, and now just trying to get that one away through the side cushion. May have actually snookered him back there. So it is going into a little bit of a chaos mode. And Zhang is going to have to try and swerve around the brown, making sure that he does get a contact on the red, which wasn't difficult, it seemed, but still an important shot for him to try and achieve. And now the red not to be anywhere near the left middle. There's not going to be any sort of temptation for Zhao Xingtong to try and take this one away. Although he might need to do that at some stage, because, as I say, the free ball value is not really going to be there. Unless, of course, he is going to be trying to achieve the free ball on the yellow. It's the only outcome where it would actually mean something there to Zhao Xingtong. But in the end, still trying to miss the red and the cue ball. After a very long shot there for him. Trying to take that red on a journey around the table, bounce it away from the black ball cushion, and hopefully for it to finish in behind the pin. But hopefully being the key word, didn't really work out. And now Chang has got a chance of either trying to cut the red if he wants to, with a very fine margin of a shot, or indeed playing the shot that he has gone for, and trying to snooker Zhao Xingtong with 3 colours to be getting in the way. But the question is there going to be a snaky way for Zhao Xingtong to be getting through to that red, past the yellow, past the blue, and past the pink? In the middle of all 3 of them, there was a way. Let's see how safe has he managed to bot the red. Well, didn't really manage to put it anywhere near to be safe. So in the end, those couple of safeties there from Chang seem like they have managed to put him in a position where, if he gets the red in, of course, he would have fully recovered from getting that chance away from Zhao Xingtong. And now the free ball is not going to be there either. I think that's going to be frame conceded here as well. So then it is just a single point, which in the end will win a frame for Chang Minyu. And after all that struggle, he will be coming down to a chance for the cue ball to go all the way around the yellow here. And can Chang Minyu finish off with a bit of a total clearance just to get himself a couple more points on the board? 2 frames each indeed it is going to be. So 78% for Zhao Xingtong still. Well, 78% of you still believe that Zhao Xingtong will be able to be victorious at the end of this session. Remember, there can't be a draw. It's going to have to be 9 frames to be played, especially since the pace of the match has been very good so far. Barely an hour more than, since the match has started. And now there will be an opportunity for Chang, as I say, to finish in style. His average break is going to be 41.5. It's about to be compromised here slightly because he's not going to be able to get so many of those points at this occasion. But of course, total clearance is still going to be a good enough way for him to try and finish off in style. Because, as I said, being 2-0 down with that chance of Zhao to try and come back to the 4th frame with a 3-0 lead didn't really work out for him. And one mistake later, and it was Chang Minyu to be taking full advantage of that 4th frame. And now, about to lead himself to an intermission with a break of 31 points, Chang Minyu has certainly managed to do about as well as he has done already, as he has done in the entire match against Chris Wakeland. So it will be very much down to a chance for a 31 points of a break. And it will be, in the end, a very important frame for Chang Minyu as well to win, as he now finally finds himself to be back on level with Zhao Xington. And you also have to say, there's been a couple of shaky moments there from Chang Minyu. Some of them down to him being unfortunate, some of them being down to the brilliance of Zhao Xington. But in the end, that brilliance was never seemingly enough there to try and get Zhao Xington past those struggles. And in the end, two mistakes, as I say, were the ones that cost him dearly. And now it's going to have to be Zhao Xington to have 2 frames on the board, but now same number to have for Chang Minyu as well. So both players with nothing to separate them at the intermission. But very interestingly enough there, you can see those 4 frames to be also similar to each other in relation to, you think about the way that Zhao Xington won the first frame, it's exactly the same way as, Chang Minyu was able to win frame number 3. Apart from, of course, a fluke, which, as I say, I think the flukes have been a bit of the advantage for Zhao Xington, but at the same time, I think his ability to come away with some brilliant shots and still mess up the position anyway, he probably is a sign of his positional play not being anywhere near good enough the level that he has to be at, but also, I think it is a suggestion that he is going to have to try and find himself to be in that window where, if he wants to be playing well, he needs to be playing well right now. And, this is going to be something that unfortunately is the reality and hasn't really been the factor that, Zhao Xington has been living up with for a long, long time there. Because when you think about every single one of his matches, even against Robertson when he won 5 frames to 1, even against Jack Jones where he was a very comfortable win, he had bad spells in that match. In every single one of his matches that he's had in the main draw, apart from the qualifier where, he won 5-0, no problem. But when you think about it, Chang Minyu needs to try and extend that period of a struggle for Zhao Xington as much as he possibly can. Because if he's going to be able to win 2 frames, great. Well done to him. Congratulations. That won't win you the match though. You need to realize that you are going to have to try and come away with a best possible result. And the best possible result here means you are going to have to try and work really hard. And, just make sure that when there are chances to come your way, you're going to be able to take them. But at the same time, when there are chances that you're going to try and exploit, you need to be making sure you not only are going to be able to exploit them, but also you need to start creating them for yourself. You can't just rely on, well, you'll give me another opportunity. That's not the way it's going to work every single time there. Because at some stage, as we've seen in the match against Xiao Guodong, where there wasn't a specific drop-off from Xiao Guodong there, where we've just seen Zhao to be getting better and better, very consistently there. So at the end, it will be very much down to a chance. How long is the break? 15 minutes there. So we'll see what's going to happen there. But yeah, listen, it's an interesting one for us to see, but I think it will probably be down to a chance for Chang Minyu to try and continue winning those frames in a row. Just needs to try and make sure he keeps on that winning streak as long as he possibly can, because we haven't really seen players to be winning more than 3 frames away, but in a row against Zhao Xington. But you never know, it may happen for the first time here. But we've spoken about what Chang Minyu needs, and that of course is going to be purely himself concentrated. The good news for both of the players for now is that they are going to be dictating their own play here. You don't have to worry about what's happening on the other end of the table, because that's not the way their style of play works. You need to make sure that you are playing well, and when you are playing well, the other player inevitably will be struggling to find some form. You cannot have 2 heavyweights of scoring to be both playing well. It's just simply not the way snooker works. It is all about the momentum, it is all about the confidence, and it is all about, if I play well, I will never be able to play on the same level as my opponent, because that simply wouldn't make sense. You either are playing well and you're able to put the edge in between yourself and your opponent, or you are being the one that has to put the edge on himself, and therefore that would give the advantage away to your opponent. Of course, that then can escalate to, if you've got the edge, that can also transition into a massive advantage there, which we've seen, for example, in that final in between Chris Wakelin and Chang Minyu. But, I think this is the map final which Chang has managed to handle pretty well so far, but at the same time, it would also be down to a chance for him to try and exploit a little bit further down the rankings, because when you think about the opportunity this is for Chang Minyu, when you forget about the pressure and when you forget about, just winning the title, when it comes down to the opportunities that he'll give to Chang Min-yu, it's going to mean a lot more to him to win this match, rather than what it would mean to someone like Zhao Xingtong that has already managed to win pretty much everything that there was in the World Snooker Tour for him to try and achieve there. So, therefore, with that logic, I think you have to give the mental edge away, probably to Chang Min-yu right now, because I think he was always going to struggle in those first two frames. And I did say he can't really afford to be losing, pretty much the first two, but the fact that he managed to come away with a really good result in frames 3 and 4 is important. Now, he's managed to get through the first stage pretty much unscathed. I would say that's the best thing that he could have done to himself. And, now just having to make sure that wasn't all down to nothing. He needs to make sure now he's going to be able to exploit that and transition into something better, play some better snooker, and improve on his game. Let's just now try and analyze the way that the players have approached the game on a certain aspect of their particular performance. When it comes down to long potting, neither has been great, but for different reasons. I think Zhao Xingtong's long potting has been better. I think he's managed to make something like 4 out of 6 or something like that, including that fluke that he had into the left corner. Which tournament do you plan on calling next? All of them, Gareth. And we've got British Open and English Open coming up. All one after another. We've got 3 weeks of snooker, this being the first week, and then we've got the British and the English Open as well. Never a fan of those tournaments, not going to hide that. Probably, one of my 2 least favourite tournaments, but simply because of, the draw of the British Open, which I can't stand, but also the way that the matches seem to start. Then it's the first to 4 race, which means you think about it started, in an hour, it's going to be over already, which for me, it's never quite enough to enjoy it, but that's the way that it goes. And a little bit of snooker is always better than having no snooker at all. So now it will also be down to a chance for someone like an opportunity for Zhao Xingtong. As I say, his long shot game, that's rated 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. Putt success, well, you would have to say 10 before those 2 mistakes, but for how costly those 2 mistakes have proven to be, you probably have to drop it down to a 7 as well, because the first 2 frames have been brilliant, with rarely a mistake to be coming in from him. But, as I say, the frames of 3 and 4 seem to have cost him very dearly, even though we've only seen 2 mistakes there for him. But it was still more than enough there for him to be losing out on both of those occasions. So now we are getting through towards the main problems for him. Positional play, I'm not going to say he's been all over the place, but he certainly wasn't as great in the first 2 frames as the pot success was. So I think you have to say probably 5 or 6 out of 10 for Zhao Xingtong. And, the biggest problem for him has been safeties. I think, the problem with trying to rate his safety shots is that we haven't really seen too many of them that he's played in the previous 4 frames. But I still think, do you think Chang could get upset here? Well, listen, I think when you talk about the whole match as a package, I think it's still a long way from coming. I did say before the match, it's going to have to be a one-sided performance. I don't see this match to be going all the way. It's simply not the way that these 2 styles work. If you're going to have 2 players with exactly the same style, you're very rarely going to see a decider. You need one to be attacking, you need the other to be defensive, and they sort of met in the middle. And that's how you get a decider or a 10-8 win, or a 10-7 or whatever. I think Chang is capable of doing it. I did say that I expect Zhao to be the front runner, but from what we've seen in the previous 2 frames, who says that Chang can try and extend that winning streak, get himself into a 4-2 lead, make sure that he's got a chance in the second session, hopefully finish off the first session with him being the winner. And if he does that, I think Zhao will improve in the second session, which is another thing for you to worry about if you are rooting for Chang, because when you think about those finals, difficult to judge on the Mark Williams final because it was consisting of 4 sessions. But the damage was done in the first 2 in that particular match. When you think about the matches in between last season, against Zhang, massive performance and a massive advantage that he had in the second session there, Zhao. It was very close in the first session. If anything, Zhang had the edge but it seemed like he was always trying to use all of his fuel, trying to stay in contention, to be having that edge over Zhao Xingtong. And then, Zhao just seemed to have got a little bit bored of waiting and just fired up some brilliant long shots, some brilliant positional play, and blown away all the doors there of Zhang and completely destroyed him in the second session. When it comes down to performance against Higgins in the final of the Players' Championship, I think once again, that time around Zhao had the edge on him in the first session, but, it was still very much down to Higgins to be coming away with a decent result here and there, and second session once again just proving who's the boss, and Zhao Xingtong was able to win second tournament in a row. Then, when you talk about the performance that he had against Trump in the Tour Championship, it was a very different one because the first session was relatively close, and then the second session he's just blown all the doors away. He destroyed Trump. Whether it was down to tip problems or not, he absolutely annihilated him. I mean, Chang only dropped one frame against Trump, and he also beat Ronnie. Yeah, Jonathan, I agree with that, but there's a couple of counterpoints to it. Sometimes you can easily play your best game before the final. Number 2 point that I'm going to make doesn't mean anything in a first to 10 match. First to 5, beating Trump is impressive, and it was a really good win for him, absolutely. His win over Ronnie wasn't impressive. It was impressive in relation to the result and what it mean to him, but his game was far from being, above average. I would say it was exactly average. It's just that his opponent was struggling even a lot more. But also, when it comes down to a 2-session match, you need experience more than anything. And his only experience of having a 2-session match is going to be a crushing defeat to Chris Wakelin, where he had 2 frames like he had right now. He had a 2-all draw against Wakelin, remember? Didn't really stop him from losing 9 frames to 2. So he can't go on that horrible run of losing 7 frames in a row. But this time, he's up against an opponent which can go on that horrible run himself. So that's going to be something to consider. But also, I think Judd Trump is a great player. Ronnie is a decent player on his day. I think Zhao Xingtong right now, as it stands, is a better player than Judd Trump. And you add the inexperience, you add this being a 2-session match, you add Zhao Xingtong to be the crowd favourite inevitably, and you add, the fact that he's managed to win every single ranking final that he's played at, and the numbers are going to be against Chang Minyu. But the performance so far, you have to say, has been pretty promising, because the fact that he's not behind is already a benefit for him after the first 4 frames. Now, it's either try and stay with him for the remainder of the session, because you can't really say just run away from it. It's not quite as easy as that. Depending on what happens in the frames number 5 and 6, whatever happens, he needs to be within 1 frame away come the end of the session, because if it's going to be 6-3, which was I predicted, game over for me. Forget about it. He's going to melt quicker than an ice cream on the sun on a hot day in Africa. It's absolutely not going to happen, because the further Zhao Xingtong will get away from him, the more there will be confidence for Zhao Xingtong, and the more panic there will be kicking into Chang Minyu. Does anybody think that Trump will regain the number 1 ranking in the future? It depends on how near of a future you're talking about. I think he will be back to the world number 1. Well, I want to think so, because I don't actually mind Trump. And I'm just trying to think. Let's have a look, actually. How many ranking points is he behind Zhao Xingtong right now? He needs to be playing better than what he has in the last 14 months, though. So right now, already, he's 150,000 behind of Zhao Xingtong. Well, I mean, I say he's going to be the world number 1. It's not quite as simple as Zhao Xingtong dropping 500,000 worth of ranking points, which he's capable of doing. But even if that is the case, right now, and Zhao Xingtong was to donate 500,000 worth of ranking points to charity, he would still be the world number 4 there, Trump. Even though he'd be close to Robertson, Weiss, and Selby. But, the fact in itself that Selby doesn't have a lot of ranking points to defend, as far as I'm aware. Well, I mean, the stats probably say a little bit of a different picture there, but in the end, he doesn't have a lot of tournaments to defend. Robertson, he's going to have to lose some points because of the English Open, because remember, he won that tournament in 24 against Weiser, by the way. So both of the players will have plenty of ranking points to defend. So I still think Trump will come back to the world number 1, but whether it's going to happen tomorrow, probably not. Whether it's going to happen in a year's time, probably likely to happen, but The problem that Trump will have is that he's going to be up against a double damage with Zhao and Weezer, the Chinese players that are going to be very much taking over the snooker sport, potentially according to the predictions, but also based on the ranking system. They don't have many ranking points to defend, which puts them in a lot better of a position than somebody like Trump, which has had a brilliant 2024-2025 season, apart from the World Championship and maybe some of the Triple Crowns as well. So he's going to have to try and come away with a really good result. Remember, Trump himself is not really low on points. He's going to have to defend those ranking points from UK Championship where he beat Barry Hawkins. So he's got a long way to go if he is to be back to the world number one. Chang Min-yu, though, has got a long way to go until he's going to be the winner of the ranking event for the first time in his life. As the intermission now finally over, and we'll see just what Chang Min-yu can produce in his fifth frame. He has been very much team positives for him so far. Let's see if he's going to be able to try and maintain those positives out here as well. As we're now seeing the break off from Chang Min-yu. It is an improvement to what we've seen in the first frame, but still not quite good enough to shut down those opportunities away to Zhao Xington, and therefore there will be a chance for the red to be taken into the left corner. He's been missing those a couple of frames now, and he's going to miss another one here. Well, we are certainly seeing a shift in what the performance looks like from Zhao Xington here, but I think for the neutral, it is still a very exciting thing to be watching there, because I think Chang Min-yu probably needs to be getting himself a bit of a lead, because that, struggle in form, I think is going to be very much temporary. And I think Zhao Xington is going to be able to come away with still some great frames there before the end of the session. So for now, seems to be working out pretty well for Chang. He needs to try and take full advantage of that. Still, apart from that break of 76 points, he's never really seemed to be able to do the damage with a single break there at the table. Let's see if this is going to be a bit of a different story now then. Needs to play a big shot with plenty of backspin there on the cue ball, which always takes the control away from the pot, but no problem this time around. And as I say, the position, which is exactly the same as Zhao Xington has been getting in the first 2.5 frames, is now all of a sudden transitioned to be exactly the same, but with a different name to be scoring some points. And Chang Min-yu have got a chance. Why do the players drink so much water? A little bit of a weird question, because they want to. If they were drinking alcohol, I think you could question that. But if they want to drink water, stay hydrated. There's not really a problem with that. I don't know. You have to ask them. Maybe they feel like, they are using a lot of energy, and, you don't really want to be eating midway through the match unless you're going to have a little, chocolate or protein bar with a banana, which always reminds me of Neil Robertson, because he's probably the only player that I can remember eating those type of stuff. But, interesting one, but as I say, not really a lot of controversy for me to say. For now, Chang Min-yu there. Well, you could see this time around, as he plays the cue ball into those reds, you felt like at this stage, with him to be very much the leading player right now, he's about and he's bound to be leaving himself with a little bit of good fortune there, which was the case on the previous shot. He didn't play straight into the heart of the pocket, but all these little things, all of a sudden, when he was struggling in those previous frames, are going to have to start to be going in his own direction, and therefore to be serving very much as the advantage for him as well. So we'll see what's going to happen, but at the same time, he's still got some difficult shots to be making his way through. As the pink wasn't a difficult shot, but it was a very delicate shot that he had to go through. And now, clearly a little bit, unsure about the way that he's played that cue ball in towards the gap for the two reds, but I don't really understand what the concern is all about. I think he's certainly going to be on one of those reds, and I'm actually thinking that he might be lined up on both of them. So let's see. Chang Min-yu there, maybe just asking why the pink is going to have to go above the reds rather than below, but I think the referee is going to suggest to him that he's going to go back onto its own spot there, and he just about fits. Chang Min-yu is not going to argue with him for too long out there, but as I say, he's got a great chance here of trying to find himself ahead in the match for the first time. He's certainly being able to achieve that with, already being technically ahead in the match. With he didn't really score any points before that ultimate break of 76 points from Zhao Xington at the starting points of the match. But at the end, still going to try and get himself a number 3, which would mean a lot to him, no doubt, because, as I say, that already would mean that he's done better than anything that he's achieved in the entire match against Chris Wakelin. And after getting a 2-1 advantage, he's lost 8 frames in a row in that particular battle, the most of anyone last season in the final. But, joint highest with John Higgins to be losing 8 frames in a row against Zhao Xington. And another honourable mentions are going to be someone like Weezer to be winning 6 frames in a row against someone like Judd Trump in the International Championship. But at the same time, I think he lost pretty much the same amount to Chris Wakelin, where he was struggling quite badly to get himself through towards the second round. Now, the Chang Minyu just making sure that he's not going to be straight on the block there, trying to control the cue ball, not just with the movement of the cue, but also with his vision there, just asking it to slow down and making sure that he's still going to be lined up for the red to be taken into the right corner, which will free up another red to be taken into the left or the right part of the table. And at that stage, he should get a great chance of getting himself towards the finish line of this break. 3-2 Chang. Well, we'll see. It's not quite there, but certainly got a great chance of achieving it. He's going for a 1-4-6 for now, but seemingly he's going to have to try and lose a couple of those points. Well, that wasn't really what I meant. Trying to pot 2 reds at the same time, whether that was very much something that he was trying to achieve, but 2 for the price of 1. He'll certainly take that at this stage. And at the end of it, he will be down to a shot for Chang here to try and play the blue away and into the right middle. So just making sure that he does get himself lined up for the blue. And the cue ball is going to be going all the way to the top end of the table. Whether he's going to have to try and give it a massive bounce to try and spread the 4 reds away from each other on the ping, or is he going to fancy his chances of trying to play the reds into the yellow pocket? I think he's going to go for the aggressive option, and that being trying to send the cue ball into the reds. Wasn't really the way that he wanted to get there. He got there in the end, but he got no result for it. After catching the jaw off the middle pocket, he did take the pace away from the cue ball, but he's also changed the line that the cue ball was moving very significantly. And now there will be a break of 54 points, which seemingly he's going to have to end here. So yet again, Chang Minyu is not quite able to utilize that first opportunity to himself, as the break that he's going to win in the frame with 100% of a guarantee. But he's still got a chance of playing the cue ball and giving a slight nudge towards those reds. So making sure he will be down to a safety battle now in between himself and Zhao Xington. But, he's still going to have plenty of opportunities there, Zhao, because when it comes down to 54 points of a lead, it is a healthy advantage there for Chang. But with 83 points to the table, yes, he will need a total clearance here on the reds. But when it comes down to Chang Minyu himself, he will need a couple more reds to try and take away with decent value colours. And I tell you what, that was about as close as he could have got there. Zhao Xington clearly trying to make things happen there, but unfortunately, on that same occasion, the double that he attempted into the left middle didn't quite work out for him. And the consequences are about to be unleashed there. Although, he was playing for the black, remember, so let's see the way that Zhao, he's going to have to, either sit back in his seat or come back to the action right now. And he's still looking for that red to be taken away from Chang Minyu. It's a good shot on the red, not necessarily a great shot on the colour. And what do you do here then? Because this is why it was so important to be having 83 points as the lead. Well, you still think he will go for the black to be taken into the right corner, but it's a risky shot there. And if I was Chang Minyu fan, I would probably ask him not to be doing that. And he seemed to have listened to me, incredibly, through the screen, which is, that would have been, I'm a little bit surprised that he wasn't even considering to be going for that shot. And even more surprised that he's seemingly thinking about going for the blue here. So, let's do the maths there, Chang, as he says to himself. 55 points clear. Well, maybe he wants to try and put the blue safe, which I'm sure Zhao Xington will need at this stage of a frame. Whatever he does, and especially with the ping to be out of position as well. Well, maybe he feels he can go for this black, but as I say, I don't think he can. But he's now taken over a minute. Twice he was aiming for the black there. Twice he was thinking about dumping the cue ball for the black ball cushion, once on the left and once on the right hand side of it. And still, doesn't seem to be a decision that has been made So is he going to try and attempt the blue here? I don't think there is a reason for him to try and put the blue safe when he knows which kind of opponent he's going to be up against, but maybe he's going to try and pop the green here, which is his best chance of trying to keep the break going, but it could also be his worst nightmare should he miss the green. It's a lot of time that he's taken into the shot, and now here are the consequences. He missed the green, and has he left anything available to Zhao? Well, nothing easy, it would seem, unless the cue ball can see this way past the red and into the right middle. He's going to have to go for a shot into the green pocket, but still, you know, this frame is very much alive there for Zhao. He's got, obviously, the introduction, which is not easy. Then he's got two issues, and then, apart from that, it doesn't seem to be a lot to be stopping him from potentially winning this frame. Needs to be mindful, though, of the points that he's going to be losing now, especially since he's about to play the yellow, it would seem. But yeah, it's a bit of an awkward situation, this. No, he's going to go for the brown, which is reasonable, and try and get the cue ball back down the table, which doesn't really compromise him a lot down in points, but still, I don't think he wants to be playing for the black as the final clearance. I think he wants to try and stop on the pink, and to give himself an ability to be playing that cue ball away from the pink, just to make sure that if something was to go wrong, and I think he's very likely to leave the pink as it is until the end of the frame, and just try and cut that one into the corner. It's a long way to think there, but as I say, the pink is being only one of the two issues that are going to be considered a major problem for him to try and encounter. The only other issue being the red on the right part of the table, and now 42 points is going to be the lead for Chang, and you know, still an advantage here, probably would say for Zhao, because he's now the player at the table, even though he doesn't really have a great history in the last couple of frames of trying to finish the job off. But at the same time, as I said, he can't really just keep feeding him those chances, because at some stage, especially the closer we get to the end of the frame, and the end of the match as well, he will be able to sort of find himself to be in that position of, well, being able to find his form again. But I tell you what, he's managed to somehow find a line of the cue ball where he had two reds available to him, and all of a sudden, he doesn't have any one of those two available. So then, it does seem like he's going to have to try and sort out the issue of the red a lot sooner than he wanted, because the two reds available are no longer visible to the cue ball. So he's going to have to try and go for the cue ball to be taken into the red along the side cushion. As you might have guessed, he got that one in, and I tell you what, Chang must have felt that was all going to come into place for him. In the end, it all seems to have fallen into place for Zhao, as he's now made absolutely the shot which should, at this stage of a frame, be the frame-winning shot as well. And once again, such a massive difference maker there from Zhao point of view. And now a great ability of trying to get the red away into the left corner, still having to play a very delicate shot on the green or the blue. Depends on which one of those two he decides to play for, but, you know, in any way, you'll have to come away with being on the left side of the red. I think it's probably the only way for him to get on that particular red, although he seemed to have taken the shot which cost him so dearly in the previous time he tried to do that. And I think he's got the result that he wanted now. So then still very comfortably inside the points that he needs, but he might need the black as well here, because I don't think he's going to be able to be more than 7 points clear at the end of passing the pink. But it's still been a really impressive clearance here of 34 points and counting. And well, listen, this is why you never celebrate too early. Chang had 55 points of a lead to try and get himself a 3-2 of a lead, but in the end, right now you have to say, Zhao is looking very nicely indeed to try and take this one away. So he will need the black indeed, as he's now looking to try and be 2 points clear before he reaches the black, which is not enough for him to win the frame, obviously. So, which makes the pink a little bit more difficult, because that, of course, requires a perfect positional play, not just for an angle, which will drop the pink into the corner, but also for a chance to transition the cue ball back towards the black there as well. But a monumental effort that from Zhao, and one of his highest breaks in the match as well. And certainly one of the most important and impressive ones too, when you think about some of the shots that he had to play. That formidable red along the cushion that he was able to strike into the right corner was very, very impressive. And now just having to roll that cue ball in behind of the pink. Play that shot reasonably well. I think he's going to have to just drop the pink in with no power. And he seemed to have played that one absolutely superbly well. Once again, no sign of touching any side jaws of the pocket there. And now being lined up on the frame ball. You can count him out all you want, but he always comes back to prove you wrong on that one. It is Zhao Xington with a formidable break of 65 points, and he may be the third highest in the match, but he certainly is going to be number one of the most important ones made so far in the previous 5 frames. And it's certainly the way to try and turn things around there for his own performance. And now it will be down to Zhao Xington with a fantastic clearance of 65 points. And now he is going to be finding himself in the lead. And once again, nobody so far in this tournament has been able to get his nose ahead of Zhao Xington. A few people have tried, but you have to say, neither have been able to succeed with that particular mission. And in the end, he was down to Chang to be playing some great shots on his way to be making that advantage of 55 points with a break of 54, but he was evenly matched and very much surpassed there with a break of 65, which allows Zhao Xington now to be thinking about a really good position there for him to be at the end of the first session, because unless he loses all the remaining 4 frames, which, let's put it lightly, is very unlikely to happen, I think he's always going to be very much the player that will find himself to be in a great position, even if he's losing by 5 frames to 4, still to be the man, considered to be the favourite of, the remaining things that are inevitably going to happen in relation to the remaining up to 10 frames, of course. So it's a great result there from Zhao Xington, but I have to say, Chang Minyu just not being clinical enough there once again. But is this going to be the frame which not only gives mental advantage for Zhao Xington in relation to gives him more freedom to work with those frames as the advantage that he's got, but also we've seen him struggle badly in the frames 3, 4 and the beginning of 5th as well. So we'll see if he's going to struggle now, because I don't think so. I think that frame, a couple of really good shots that he played under pressure, including the long shots as well, some of the best shots that we've seen him play the whole tournament, and all of a sudden he's now going to have to be pressure back on Chang Minyu. Great clearance indeed, Basky was. Zhao Xington is the main man. He is. And the problem with being the problem with being up against the main man is that you can't really allow them to be demonstrating their best form. And that certainly was the best of Zhao Xington, because he could not have done anything else on that particular occasion. As he's now checking the referee with whose break-off shot is it going to be. It's been a long time coming since his break-off shot. More than an hour since that point, but in the end, he's still going to be very much standing as the lead man here, and with a 3-2 lead, looking to try and extend it and come away with a 2-frame cushion yet again, as he was after the first 2 frames. But once again, one thing is consistent about those two: they keep leaving the chances away for each other into the left and right corner. Right corner for Chang Minyu all the time. Zhao Xington seems to be leaving that pocket very much available to his opponent. And when it comes down to Chang, he loves to be leaving Zhao Xington with the left part of the table to be available. But we'll see what's going to happen now, because Chang Minyu was very much able to take that red away into the right corner. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that it's now 3 frames where we've seen a break-off from Zhao Xington and 3 pots into the right corner, which is very impressive there from Chang. But at the same time, it's not quite so impressive from Zhao Xington's point of view, because you get yourself to be working so hard in the previous frame to get that lead of a single digit of a frame, and now every single time he had to break off, he seems to have given the initiative away back to his opponent. But I also think the previous frame won't really just be a boost to Zhao Xington. I think it'll be a downside and a bit of a damage done to Chang Minyu there, and just how much of a damage you're about to see. Well, listen, once again, those shots were spreading out in a previous frame for him, and for now, only going to be 1 red, but it's still a lot for him to try and take in, because, 1 red is a huge difference to having no reds available, because 1 red that you have, there's always going to be more reds available. It's just that you haven't landed on them, and he's now given himself a good enough of a position to try and land on those couple of reds after taking that cue ball to be lined up for the blue here, taking that one away towards the right corner and making sure into the right middle, I should say, and aiming for the reds into the left corner to be taken, but certainly playing the cue ball with a bit of a touch and go distance in relation to the reds at the left part of the table. But apparently, all this time he was playing for the red at the right corner, which means he's badly overplayed this shot. Zhao is looking at the sky, which probably would suggest the monitor. And it's a great shot there from Chang Minyu. Let's see how far the cue ball is going to be lined up for the blue there. So, as much as he played a great split to the pack there in relation to the power and the accuracy, didn't really get the result that he wanted there. Now, just being the consequences of that, having to go for those reds with the blue, requiring great positional awareness, but also, a minor step away from being in that prime position, is going to cost him very dearly. He doesn't really want to be touching the pink or black now because, either one of them two will have to go on the black ball spot, and that's not really going to be any much of the advantage unless he feels he can try and get through to the red, which is closest to the black ball spot right now, because that will change everything quite drastically there, because after that, he's going to have an easy shot on the pink to be taken into the left corner, and if he pots that one in, then he's got a great opportunity of trying to be on the pink and, just trying to very much build his own break around the pink as well. So we'll see if that's going to happen. For now, it seems like he's taken that as a no. So it was something for him to consider, but in the end, he clearly felt he wasn't going to be good enough, or either he felt like he has found a better option. But he went for the pink anyway, which to me is a little bit surprising. Surely that will mean that the pink will go on its own spot, and he does. Okay, so that changes things, because that doesn't really leave him with a lot of options there, because if he potted that red that I was talking about, potted the pink doesn't really go into the black ball spot, which is the only spot available out of the two of them. So, yeah, he's going to have to try and do it on the black, but of course he's still going to have to try and wait until he's going to be able to get the cue ball into the remaining red. So a lot of thinking there coming through from Chang Minyu. For now, he seems like he's making all the right decisions. And still looking at the black here, which, once again, he needs to make 2 points out of this shot. He needs to get the black in. He needs to get those two reds away from the cue ball and also from the black ball spot. And he played that shot superbly well, getting one of those reds to be away from the black ball spot and the other one to be lined up on right now. So it's a brilliant way to respond there from Chang Minyu. And he certainly seems like he's finding himself to be getting some great pace in relation to the break building. And yeah, I mean, very surprised, not really to see him playing well, but not very surprised, just the way that he's managed to put that frame behind him completely for now. 34 points later, I wasn't surprised at all that Zhao has given him yet another chance of going for a long red, because he's done that every single frame he's broken off. But okay, this is where I am getting a little bit surprised, because surely Chang should have done a little bit better there. I get that he's run out of easy reds to be taken, but what sort of red is he going to have to go for now? Because all of a sudden, he's looking at the reds to be taken into the right corner, which is still fine in relation to potting the red, but how on earth are you going to try and control the cue ball, especially since he's actually running a little bit low on the reds? Pretty well is the answer. Let's see how well is going to be the end result. Well, as I say, I still stand by it. I think he played that shot pretty well, but the result ain't great, because he's gone through the gap in between the yellow and brown. And that was the good part, because that leaves you with some sort of control where you don't touch any of the bold colors or the blue. But now, what sort of color does he have in himself? Can he cut the blue? If he cuts the blue, I think he's going to have to try and take the cue ball into the reds, which is not an easy thing for him to do. So, yeah. Zhao is bad form like most or every player, but more times than not, he's at a decent level or at his best, I agree. But look at this. Well, this could be the turning point, if not in the match, and certainly in the session. That was a shot for the blue. His average break is 41.8, and he's made a break of 42 points. Well, that was a very difficult cut on the blue, but still you have to say he should make that one in. And Zhao, he's going to have a red available to him into the middle. And if he takes that one away, all of a sudden, he becomes to be the favourite for the frame. And what a massive turnaround this frame could prove to be. Well, listen, I'm not really going to say it's down to the previous frame. I think it was a difficult position for Chang Minyu to navigate his way through. and he's unlucky to leave the position that he has left to Zhao Xington after doing so many great things during that break. But in the end, Zhao Xington still gotta drop the red in and only just about does it, only because of how little pace there was injected on the red. The initiative of the moving of the red has dropped it in towards the pocket, but well, even though he caught the slight bit of the jaw, still doesn't seem like he was going to be too kind to him at that stage. But I mean, what a position that he's got ahead of himself. There is still work to do. He's got 2 reds available, and he's got 2 more cannons and pairs of 2, which he's just managed to improve on one of them, which automatically promotes both of the reds to be available. And I think the other 2, you might be able just to navigate your way through without actually having to touch them completely. And well, this is going to be close, and this is going to be a mistake. Unfortunately, that mistake has been coming. He nearly missed the red beforehand, but now Chang Minyu is going to be sprinting towards the table with a smile as bright and as wide as he's ever had, because Zhao Xington just seems like, after the brilliant break of the previous frame, the good old mistakes just seem to be coming back there with him. Let's see. It's still a long shot there for Chang Minyu that he had to play because of the black covering the right corner, but I'm pretty sure he's so delighted that he's going to be coming back from the table. There was no way he was going to miss a red like that. So then, yet another chance there for Chang to try and get him back level when he comes down to the scoreboard. Zhao too good. Well, not really in that particular occasion. And now we'll be down to a 3-all draw to be very much available. You have to say that clearance was on there for Zhao. It was never going to be easy, but the black that he missed into the corner was never going to be, you know, the shot that you felt like that was actually going to create some problems there for Zhao Xington. But, you know, he was able to make problems for himself out of nowhere. And now 41 points is the lead. So he needs a red and a color there, Chang Minyu. And then he'll be down to a chance of trying to take this one down to a 3-frame shootout with having 3-all as frames count after the first 6 frames. But yeah, it just seems like Chang Minyu is able to just about stay with Zhao Xington, but I think Zhao is not really helping his own case. I think the factor of him just struggling to find a little bit of form consistently throughout those frames, and ultimately when he does find that form, he just seems to struggle quite badly to keep up with that form as well. And it seems like he running himself out of position there, which is surprising, because I felt like, especially since he caught those 2 reds sideways, felt like he couldn't really get that one wrong, but he did. And in the end, he'll be 49 points of a lead with 43 at the table. So it's going to be the break of 24 points, which will leave Chang Minyu to be playing the shot away. And it's just the cue ball to be going all the way, and hopefully for Chang in behind the green, which I think he's managed to do a really good job of. So then 43 at the table, 49 is the advantage, which means 2 snookers needed once again, as it was in that 4th frame, which in the end Zhao Xington wasn't really able to do anything about, despite playing some brilliant safety shots. Here then, he nearly got a kiss which would have allowed the cue ball to be behind the brown, but as you know, nearly doesn't count. And you've still got a chance here for Chang to try and finish the work off by just putting a red in towards the right corner and getting ourselves through towards those final 3 frame showdown. It's closed, and it's going to be the red which he has dropped in towards the right corner, and now he will be down to 67 points. That plays 17 there for Chang Minyu, and he certainly should not be seeing any more of Zhao Xington until the end of this frame. Let's see if that's going to be the case. The referee gets the nod of approval, and it will be a very quick break there for Chang Minyu, which I'm going to join onto as well. It will be down to 3 frames each though for Zhao Xington and Chang Minyu. Stay with us there. We'll be back in 2 minutes time, and hopefully plenty more action to see in between the players. But are we going to see a step up from Zhao Xington, which is going to last more than 1 frame? But the same thing has to be said about Chang Minyu. He's got a good frame on the board. Can he try and take that into something a little bit more? We'll find out soon. Apologies for that, everyone, but that's probably the downside of not really having an intermission to yourself because, well, as the referee to the snooker players would have to say, if you have to go, you have to go. But it is now going to be the 3-frame showdown, which still just about leaves me to have my prediction to be working out here, but it is unlikely at this stage, and even I will admit it, that Zhao Xington or Chang Minyu will be able to win the remaining 3 frames. So it's very likely that one of the two players will have a 6 or a 5-4 of a lead to be taken into the second session, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee it. And of course, only one of them will be able to still stick to that 6-3 advantage after the 7th frame. Someone has to take the lead. Is he going to be Chang Minyu for the first time, or is it going to be yet another time where, you know, a draw is going to be turned into an advantage for Zhao Xington? We'll have to find out very soon, as it's now Chang Minyu that comes back from his own bathroom break, and he will be down to his break-off. So let's see if he's managed to break that tendency and not leave a long red available. Well, he has left one into the left corner. I still think he's left one into the right. And, yeah, Zhao Xington once again, as usual, checking to see what the situation was with the black. So I think he's now going to try and pot the red away and into the right corner. So we'll see what's going to happen. And he's going to be yet another time where the chance was taken, and it is going to be yet another time where the break-off shot leads to a chance, but what a brilliant long shot that was from Zhao Xington's point of view. That was absolutely brilliant, and we're still seeing more and more. Some great play out there, you have to say. The first 4 frames certainly have seen this match to be a slow burner, but ever since that stage, we are seeing one mistake usually to be enough for you to punish, for you to get punished by your opponent, no matter how far ahead in the frame you are, as long as your opponent doesn't need snookers. There will be 10 players at top 16 from China in 2 years' time. UKC not producing players with potential. Well, interesting point. There will be 10 players at top 16. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You can see Zhao is dropping out of the top 16, and for now he's not showing any form, which would make him feel like he's going to be able to get back in there. And also, I mean, Chang Minyu is a great player, but let's not pretend that he was produced yesterday, you know, on all sorts of levels. He is 24, so he's not quite that young, but also he has been on this stage for a while. It's just that he had a 2-year ban to get him out of snooker for the match-fixing scandal that he had. And now, tell you what, Zhao Xington has certainly played some brilliant shots to get him started with those positions, but he is very consistently playing some weird shots as well, whether it comes down to running himself out of position and then trying to recover. But once again, it's only 8 points of a break that he's had. And, you know, now it's going to be down to a chance here for Chang Minyu to very carefully cut the red into the left corner. And apparently the 5th frame was supposed to be the game changer for Zhao Xington. And it could still prove to be the game changer for Chang Minyu, because now we are seeing a brilliant response there, not just in the previous frame, but in this frame as well, with a really good shot on the red. But as I say, we've seen that from Zhao as well. And then you are going to have an opportunity to be seeing the yellow to be taken away. But ultimately, something that you have to be very cautious about is that, you know, Zhao Xington was able to counter those brilliant shots that Chang Minyu's played. It's making the simple things to work for himself is something that he hasn't really managed to achieve so far. But as I say, so far, nobody got ahead of Zhao Xington at any stage of those matches throughout the entire tournament. A few people got close. A few people had draws with him. A few people got very close to getting a draw, aka Robertson. And the players that have had a draw with him were, of course, Hawkins and Xiao Gudong. And Chang Minyu, of course, on multiple occasions as well, with 2-0 and 3-0 as well. But after he had a brilliant chance of winning the 5th frame and get himself a 3-2 over lead, Zhao Xington managed to come back from the dead and produce a break of 65 points, which at that point made it a setback for Chang Minyu. And now he's going to have to try and recover, which he has done in the previous frame, to get himself back level, which was very important, not to be allowing Zhao Xington to be more than a single frame ahead. And now, yet another great shot there to be getting the cue ball. Plenty of bounce off the left side cushion. Making sure that he's going to be lined up with the black to be taken towards the left part of the table. So then still looking at the red, about to be taking it towards the right corner here. And just trying to dump the cue ball for the red along the black or cushion to be taken will be a nice little chance there for him. But we'll see if it's going to happen here on the black. Taken away and into the left corner, but at the same time, he didn't really play that shot too well, because I think he is now going to be trying to go for the red in towards the right middle, which, I mean, he would have loved to try and pop the red above the black there, because it would have made his life both on the red and the black a lot easier. But also, it's another chance for him to try and score 8 points, which at that stage, Zhao will be able to get his hands on. But yeah, he's going to have to come away with a good response here. And as I say, those type of shots were the killer so far for both of the players. Not going to be the killer for him now. First time Zhao lost 3 frames in this tournament, not looking good. Not really, I don't think. Well, you're always going to lose more frames in the final than you will in the previous matches out there. But I just think, you know, he's going to be a lot more relaxed, I think, than he would have been in those first to 6 matches. Because, as I say, there's a lot more room for you to try and recover. And even if he does land himself with 4 frames in a row that he's going to lose, that will still get him a 6-3 of a deficit, which is difficult, not going to argue, but I still think he's more than capable of coming back, especially since he's known for being a better player in session number 2. So we'll play if it's going to be down to Chang to try and have a word or two to say about it, but at the same time, it won't really be down to it for now, as it's 24 points of a lead, and he's still looking at the potential chance of trying to extend that lead even further. As still looking for a decent opportunity for just trying to get that red away at the cue ball. Make sure he's got a chance of being lined up on one of those reds. And he played that shot pretty well in relation to, let's see where the pink is going to go right now. But he certainly got himself onto a red. It's just the problem is right now is that he's got a black to be compromised by the red. He's now got the pink to be absolutely surrounded by the reds on all 4 fronts. And yeah, he's going to have to be very precise in his positioning for the black there, which hasn't really done a great job of in advance in relation to the way that he's going to have to try and approach this shot here. It's not going to be a great advantage to him in relation just to try and pot that red away, get himself on the black. So he may have to play for the blue. No, he doesn't think so. He thinks that he can just try and hold the cue ball to be on the black and trying to use the reds to get a couple more available to him. And in the end, he might be able to bring even more reds available to him now. So, once again, Chang is just allowing himself to be making those simple things to be working pretty well for him. And at the end of it, he will be down to a great chance of playing the black away, getting himself lined up for the reds. And at the end, he will be looking very nicely for him to try and win the 2nd frame in a row for the 2nd time in this match. But of course, under a bit of a different circumstances, because for the first time in this tournament, Zhao Xingtong will find himself behind. And for the first time, I think, in this tournament, Chang is actually going to be, well, I wouldn't say the favourite, because I still think he will be a minor advantage to Zhao Xingtong, but he'll certainly be the closest that he's ever been towards winning a ranking tournament. As I say, winning those 3 frames has certainly helped, but in the end, it seemed like that was inevitable, and unfortunately for Chang Minyu, let's see the grade of a problem that he has created for himself, as once again, he's very consistent on being around 38 to 42 points that he scores per break. And this break is not going to be an exclusion. But, well, for once, that red above the black is actually going to be available. And that thing that was stopping Chang Minyu from getting himself into a comfortable position, well, the story in the match so far, no matter how close he gets, he can't get his nose ahead there, Chang Minyu. And this could be yet another instance of that. Surely Zhao Xingtong won't be able to make yet another horrible mistake because of how, not going to say perfectly well, but how well the reds are situated away from each other. There's very little work to do in relation to try and improve their surroundings and their actual position in relation to the pockets. But at the same time, there's not a lot of those ones. First time, I've done that one as well. So then there's a chance here to be getting probably the most awkward of the reds because of the sequence of 2 shots that you have to play with it. You know, along the black ball cushion, making sure the red is going to go towards the left corner. Bounce the cue ball away like crazy towards the black, which I mean, in relation to bounce away like crazy, in relation to trying to do that with as little power as you can. But he had a very healthy angle on the reds, got the red in, 15 points behind right now, just needs to try and eliminate those silly little errors as he plays a brilliant shot, not just to get the black in, which has been a luxury for him if you think about the last 3 or 4 frames, but also he's now managed to, separate the final problem for him of those reds away from each other. And he doesn't seem like he's done with trying to improve the position. Instead of going for a simple red in towards the left middle, he's going to try and carefully cut the red in towards the right middle, which would create more space in between the other 2 reds. Looks like Chang is a better performance. Doesn't look like it to me. I think he's constantly knocking on the door of being the better player, but he always seems like, he's got the final. He's opened around 99 doors through the maze. He's got to the final one, and every single time he turns around and says no and lets Zhao Xingtong through, because that's what happened in the 5th frame, and that's what's happening now as well. As it's now 2 points, make that 1 of an advantage there for Chang, and as I say, 3 reds all to be available there for Zhao Xingtong. The 3rd one should be a frame ball as soon as he pots it with an expensive colour. And as I say, a break of 36 points, looking very nicely indeed there for Zhao Xingtong to try and make yet another break of a high value as the red goes past the ping, making his life even easier there, but can't get any easier at this stage. The easiest that he can get, of course, is going to be just getting the frame ball in, getting a couple of snookers in advantage as well, and getting himself a 4-3 of a lead, and in the end still keeping my prediction alive, but more importantly, keeping himself to be the favourite until the 2nd session there, because even if he was to lose the remaining 2 frames, he would still come away with a really good result and a smile on his face when he comes down to, well, not a really good result, but a really good chance of winning the overall match as well. Because I think if you need to find a struggle in Zhao Xingtong's record in the finals, I think the 1st session is probably the only thing that he can sort of count on as a package that he's going to have experience of as a problem. But apart from that, when he comes to, if he survives the 1st session and he's still in contention, which he's always done to be fair, because he's never lost the ranking final, and he was never, 9 or 8 frames behind coming into that 2nd session, but he always seems like his manager is just about to either stay with you or be right behind you or edge his nose ahead, but it's never seemingly, he's very much miles clear of you. He's never done that last season. He was relatively close with Trump. He was close with Zhang and Higgins in those finals, and now he's certainly finding himself to be winning this frame as well. And once again, no matter how close Chang Minyu gets to be ahead in the match, Zhao Xingtong always seems to be just 1 extra step ahead, and even when he's not, Chang Minyu is more than happy to take 2 steps backwards there to allow Zhao Xingtong to be coming through. But as I say, joking aside, those 2 frames that he's lost could prove to be very crucial, because you take away those 2 frames and the gap could have easily been 5-2 for Chang Minyu out there. Instead, he's going to have to be 4-3 as the advantage for Zhao Xingtong, as he's finishing off with the total clearance, which is going to prove to be the highest break of the match. We've seen a breaks of 76 to be joint highest by both of the players. Now, Zhao Xingtong is going to edge his nose ahead, both in the frame, but also in comparison to the highest breaks made by the 2 of the players. And even though he's still losing by 8 points in total that he's scored, which once again shows you just how close those frames have been, but every single time it's close, it seems like Zhao Xingtong has always got the edge. And it all started with that brilliant long red that he's managed to pot. Didn't get too far away with it though, as he missed the red after the first red and black combination. Was disappointed with himself, but not as much disappointment as there was for Chang Minyu after he wasn't able to pot, I think it was the red into the left middle, just about caught too much of the jaw of the left middle pocket, and in the end that cost him dearly. And Zhao Xingtong was able to come away with a brilliant clearance of 78 points, and now he has now put himself very much in that position to try and extend his lead back to 2 frames again, or alternatively, of course, he can always try and just find himself in a decent position of having a 5-4 of a lead, which will still do nicely before the 2nd session. Despite the momentum swings, this match has generally been better than the running match. Absolutely. Zhao is a great player in general. However, he has also some weird and yes, and I think Lexim, it's a good point that you make. But I think this match has been very, very similar to what Chang Min-yu and Ronnie O'Sullivan has produced, apart from a massive thing where the performance has been a lot better today. A lot better. I think the style, I think the mistakes, the way those mistakes have come have been very, very similar. But if you're going to see around 10 mistakes per frame, and I'm not joking around you, I genuinely counted them, and there were more than 10 mistakes for two players in total, around 6 for Chang and 5 for Ronnie, I think it was, which makes 11 in a frame. I think now we're getting to the stage where one mistake could lose you the frame. And that's exactly what happened in the previous frame, where both players made one mistake, and in the end, because Zhao Xingtong got a first chance in, got 8 points, makes the first mistake, Chang Min-yu got his own chance, he doesn't make that work, Zhao Xingtong punishes him. So I think that's perfectly reasonable for the final, especially when you think about, only 8 points that Zhao was able to score, and then we've seen 2 really high value over breaks of 38 and 78 there. So I think it's a lot more quality that we're seeing, but I also think some things are similar, but you can't expect the final to be perfect. You can't expect both of the players not to be making any sort of mistake, because it would be boring to watch, by the way, but you also suggest that there's something wrong with the rules or the equipment, because the whole thing about it is that you need to have mistakes for the sport to be entertaining. It's just you don't want to see too many of them, because that, of course, would suggest the quality of the players is not as great as you feel. Zhao is a long pot monster. Not many players can match his advantage over the others. I think his advantage is not just down to a long shot. I think his long shots today have been worse than Zhao Xingtong, as once again, he can't be worse than himself. That doesn't really work. Then Chang Min-yu. And once again, it is a red available to him into the right corner that he's been left after a break-off shot. But this time around, he doesn't manage to make it a perfect clean sweep of 4 out of 4. And once he even got 2 of those reds and colours in, with the cue ball to be joining the party of the reds. But alternatively, if you don't make a red like that in, then there is going to be a chance for Zhao Xingtong to try and respond, especially since, I don't think he's going to need an extra invitation when he's got a lead in the frame there. And yes, you might say, well, he needs to try and finally stop wasting those leads away and finally get himself a 2 frame with the advantage. He might, but he also might try and do it his own way, because I'm still thinking he's going to be very much interested to try and win the frame, but I don't think he's going to be looking for a very long safety battle, which at this stage, of course, would hamper his momentum, which he has been building throughout the last couple of frames. And if it wasn't for that mistake, which I can't remember right now, in the frame number 6, he would have easily had a 5-2 over lead over Chang Min-yu. But this is a bad mistake there. Well, he nearly got 2 reds, very thin away on both of them, but in the end, missed out on both of those occasions. I think Zhao Xingtong is going to take this shot from him. No, he won't, which is surprising for me. I thought he might fancy his chances of going for a long shot, but no is the answer. Clearly feels that, of course, this is going to be one of those shots where you are going to have the 3 miss rule to apply. And therefore, Chang Min-yu and Zhao Xingtong both agree that the respot from the referee is good enough. So then a chance here for Chang to try and play the shot away. Very thin on the edge. Once again, doesn't want to be catching this one too thick, but I felt like it was always going to be a little bit self-inflicted there, that first miss, because it wasn't really the shot that he had to play perfectly thin on the edge. But I'll tell you what, could not have played the result to be any better. It's a great shot there for Chang Min-yu, and says that he was worth giving away 4 points if he was going to plan the cue ball like that, because I can't really see anything that would make me feel like Zhao Xingtong has got a safety shot in the bag out there. Absolutely 100% agree. These 2 players are in the final for a reason, not including the Ronnie semi-final match. They played very well and fluently. I still think Zhao will barely win, probably 10-8 or even 10-9. Well, once again, there's 2 points that I disagree with you on that one. I think the overarching picture is correct, but I think you're a little bit harsh on Chang there. Just because it wasn't brilliant snooker, I'm not going to say Zhao Xingtong played brilliant snooker against Zhao Gudong. He had better prime in that particular match because he was able to go on a formidable run on winning 4 frames in a row and making some fantastic clearances. But let's not pretend that Chang Min-yu didn't have fantastic breaks as well, especially towards the end of the match. Yes, he was held by a little bit of a couple of flukes, but so was Zhao Xingtong yesterday. And I think you have to give more credit to Chang. With Ronnie, it's difficult because, he's the legend of the game, but he plays like crap 90% of the time, which is a shame, but that's the reality, as the cue ball going to be fighting its way towards the pocket yet again. So yet another foul shot there from Chang Min-yu, but this one could prove to be a lot more costly. when it comes down to a chance for Zhao Xington to be playing a long red into the corner, if he refused the previous time with the ball in hand, I think he's not going to refuse it on this time of asking. So we'll see what's going to happen. But yeah, very quickly on Chang Min-Yu's performance as well. I think I disagree that this match will finish closely. I do expect someone to step up big time to the plate and the other to drop off quite a bit as well. I just don't think this match can go on like this forever. I was very surprised that we've seen Lisowski and Trump to produce a match like this, but Trump is a lot more all-round player, and he's a better player than Lisowski when it comes to just having a better all-round game. So I think their styles are a little bit different. I think if you compare Trump of 2020, then Lisowski of 2025, yes, you can compare that, but not now. Well, Zhao Xington nearly fluked the red towards the left corner after missing out on taking that red away towards the right corner. But in the end, the Titan has fallen in this particular aspect. And, well, he is human after all. He can miss a long shot. Hasn't happened for a long time, but he has done it now. So, it's going to be a red to be taken in towards the left middle. And therefore, a great chance for Chang to try and get himself once again an opportunity of getting 4 frames each. I have 10-7 Zhao or to win. Come on, kid. Well, Zhao is fully charged today. No low, but, well, I mean, I wouldn't really say he's still on full charge. I still think he's trying to go in the lean mode, if you like, for the engine or for the ERS. He might be just trying to save a little bit of energy, go himself into the low mode, and then trying to harvest a little bit towards the second session out there. But seriously speaking, I think his game has been great at parts, horrible at times, and good in the middle. So I think it's probably fair to say that he's had a good campaign so far, but can't really be too proud of anything that he's done. As is Zhao Xington, as is Chang Min-Yu, I should say, because of how, you know, he had 3 reds to be available to him, 4 reds actually, as he looks to the one to the middle, and he may have to go to the option 4 now because, yeah, he's not really on 2 reds that he was playing for. The red at the black ball cushion disposal is quite a difficult one to get the angle on the cue ball. So seemingly to me, he's going to have to try and go for the red in towards the right middle, play this shot with plenty of power, and make sure he doesn't hit any part of the front jaw there. He didn't. How well has he played the cue ball? Pretty well. Not perfect though, as I'm trying to see. I mean, he's perfectly lined up for the ball colours, but I'm still trying to realise on just what type of a red is he going to have to play for. He probably would have needed a little bit more angle on the yellow, but playing the shot into the left side of the table is going to be a great advantage. But once again, he needs plenty of cue action on this one. Let's see if he's going to get it. Played that shot pretty well, but he needs to be on the higher red now. Well, I don't know if he's on the higher red. If he is on the higher red, then he sorted out his issues. But if he's only seeing the lower red, which is closer to the black ball spot there, which I think he's going to be very straight on, which would make his life a lot more difficult in trying to get on the pink or the black there, which are all next to each other, the black being on the pink spot and the pink being right next to it as well. Yeah, to be honest, I should have sent them a message, knowing that I didn't watch the previous matches. No, it happens, but I think, listen, if you think about the way the previous 7 frames have gone, and this frame is going as well, I think you've got every reason to be thinking that it will be down to a chance for Chang Min-Yu and Zhao Xington to go like this forever, but I don't think that's the way that it works. It may be in soap opera or in some sort of drama cinema, but I don't think that's the way it works in reality. They have been unevenly matched for themselves for the reason of neither has been playing well. And somehow, which is surprising to me still, their mistakes have been very, very similar. Like genuinely similar, because when you think about it, it's not down to one person will get a chance. Basically, my first point is going to be, in those 8 frames, every player had 1 or more chances. And majority of those frames, we've seen 2 or 3 chances for each of them. Which means the chances are there, the execution is not there. The execution is not there because the pot success is the biggest issue. The positional success is great for Chang Min-Yu. I think it's probably one of his biggest advantages over Zhao Xington because of how great his positional play is. very rarely runs himself out of position. I can't think of more than 2 instances, but there've been more, but I can't think of them. I can think of easily 7 or 8 of Zhao Xingtong running himself out of position. And the weird thing about it is that if the positional play is going to be more or less matched, then where are mistakes coming from? Because if you get a great positional play from Chang Minyu, and I'll say it's decent from Zhao Xingtong, then why are we getting so many chances? Well, that's the next point. The position, the pod success. The pod success has been dreadful when you think about the stage and the player that Zhao Xingtong is. Chang Minyu gets a little bit more leeway because he is the world number 32, and he's also just through to his second ranking final. But the mistakes that have been made are a joke in comparison to the shots that the both players have been making as well. So think of this, for example, if you've got, I don't know, a 2-ton car that you can lift, but you're not able to lift a suitcase, which is worth 50 kilograms. That's basically what they're doing. They've got enough strain to lift that 2-ton car, but when it comes down to trying to lift the suitcase worth of 50 kilos with their one hand, they can't do it. And they've been doing that for 8 frames. It has got better. The first 4 frames in relation to it have been dreadful, but I think we are getting to the stage where you make a mistake, and if it was your first mistake, it may prove to be the only mistake that you're going to make in this frame, because either you're going to get another chance, you're going to take it, or you won't win the frame. And that's usually the way that it works. And I think on the last 3 or 4 frames, we haven't really seen 2 chances to be given, especially to Zhao Xingtong. I think because it's him that gets the first chance in pretty much a majority of them, I think it's always either he is going to be the one to try and get a very early mistake, then Chang Minyu is going to go all the way and either win the frame from there, or he's going to go halfway and leave another chance away for Zhao Xingtong, which is exactly what's happened in the previous frame and something that is happening right now. Fair point, actually. Statistically speaking, if Chang improves his potting, then he's more likely to break away in the final, but Zhao is the one showing more resistance from what it seems. I don't know, I wouldn't really say I'm seeing anything positive away from Zhao Xingtong. I mean, I know he's not an expert in the first session, but he's genuinely not showing me. If you take away his face, you take away his name, I'm saying that it's another Saint-Cam performance. And it's very much average when it comes down to the opposition player playing some great snooker at times, but some dreadful snooker as well. I think if Zhao Xingtong was playing well, this could have easily been 6-2 at best for Chang Minyu. And that, of course, includes him probably winning this frame. But 6-1 before this frame has started, I think could have easily been the reality if Zhao Xingtong had been clinical. I think for Chang Minyu, you have to give him a little bit more of a leeway, as I say. So I think 5-2 could have been the maximum that he could have achieved. But still, 5-2, taking this frame away, it would be 6-2 as well before the final frame. It could have been a great result for both of them. But I suppose when you say both of the players could have been at their best and could have been a lot more further ahead than the opposition, then it's probably only fair that we do look at the scoreline of 4 frames each to be very close to us. There's Chang Minyu getting the pink in. And I don't think he played that shot about as well as he could have. I think the pink was slightly offline there, and he's checking to see what's going wrong for him, but he's sort of cannoning to the reds full ball there, which I think he was trying to slide into the side of them, which is one of the only actual times where you want to slide into the reds. Usually you want to hit them full ball, but because of how the reds were positioned, one of them was always going to stick to the cue ball, and that's exactly what happened, as he still makes his second highest break in the match. Very much a match for what Zhao Xingtong has produced in the previous frame as well. So it will be a touch and ball. But as I said, I mean, it's exactly what's happened in every single frames that Chang Minyu has won. There was a chance for Zhao Xingtong at the start of the frame. Then there was a really good break of 40 to 60 points from Chang. And he either finishes the job off or he allows Zhao Xingtong to be back in contention for the frame. And that's exactly what happened here. Whether it's actually going to be a reasonable chance here for Zhao, I don't think so, because he's now, even though he's got that touch and ball advantage, which is great news, because he can have a free safety to himself, but 59 points behind with, 67 at the table, I think is going to be very difficult. I only say that because of Zhang's round match against Sean Murphy in the Welsh Open, where he made 4 centuries in a row with 100 pot success. If Chang can rediscover most of that form. And I was watching that match on the replay, because I've seen that he made 3 centuries in the first 3 frames, and then I was looking at it and then realized that he's made 4 out of 4. But there's a couple of things. I think that form comes once in a century, because there's a reason why. That was the first time that anybody in the history of snooker has done that, I'm pretty sure. 4 centuries in 4 frames. And I'm also pretty sure that Murphy was only able to score 1 point. But also, it's now a chance for Zhao Xington, so I'm going to come back to that point a little bit later on. But I'll tell you what, Chang Minyu won't survive on a mental perspective if he loses a frame like this. But Zhao Xington had a chance, which was more than good enough. He wasn't able to take it. Let's see how low the red is going to be. And I think it's going to be just about low enough for Chang Minyu to be taking this one away. And therefore, that should be very much the frame ball for him, of course. That will put him 60 points clear. After the interval, then he'll be more tougher for Zhao. No, I disagree with that. I think the further we get into the match, I think it depends with how we finish this one, because I still think it's going to be, as I think we've now put it behind us, it's 4-all, and it is confirmed to be 4-all, but I think depending on who wins the 9th frame, I think it's going to be a massive difference to the start of that second session. But I still think Zhao Xington is more than capable of running away with it, which is why I think it was so important for him to win so many of those close frames against Chang Minyu. And so far, he's done pretty well for himself. And, 2 hours and 26 minutes since the match has started, especially how long the first 4 frames were, I think is very impressive what the players managed to do in terms of the time. And we're now approaching the final frame of the session to decide the winner of this particular session. So my prediction of 6-3 is not going to be correct, but I may still get the person to have won the session correct. As remember, Zhao has never been behind, not just in this match, despite having 3 draws to himself, past 0-0, but also he's never been behind in the entire tournament, which is an incredible stat for him to be faced up with, especially since, he's lost a reasonable amount of frames. Oops, that's interesting. Completely messed up the scoreboard. There you go. That's the problem of getting in Google browser. For a second there I thought I closed it completely, but I didn't, which is good news. But Chang Minyu is still getting a chance of trying to get himself a decent break here on the board. I mean, he does usually get stuck in around 30 or 40 points. Still no century, not quite. And so far Zhao had it come back strong in second session or later part of the match. Think he'll take the title. Yeah, I agree, Peter. I agree with that one as well. Google spotting, well, exactly. In the end, it will be all down to just, one button that you press wrong and you could close the whole thing off, which is a bit of a problem because you try and recover all those points there, especially since introducing the average break thing. It's an absolute nightmare if you close it. So the best solution is try not to close it, but it's not the way it works sometimes. As now Chang Minyu makes a break of 27 points, which he's still going to be able to double and give to the next person if he's going to be able to give himself a chance of making a total clearance on the colours, which is of course equivalent to 27 points, which would make it, I'm pretty sure, his 3rd break, or maybe 4th of 50 plus, which is still going to be more than what Zhao Xington has managed to produce. But I think Chang Minyu has really managed to hold himself together pretty well. When he comes down to, he came into this match as a very significant underdog. He's managed to stay with Zhao Xington despite Zhao apparently being in his best river and being in the environment that he's so happy with, being the front runner. But he never managed to run away from Chang Minyu, even though he had a 2-frame cushion. But that was down to nerves, I'm sure of it, because Chang seemed like he wasn't comfortable with the environment that he had. But he just played a brilliant shot, one of the best exhibitional shots that you can see there on the pink. I mean, look at that. That is absolutely Judd Trump-esque. That was brilliant there from Chang Minyu, and he's managed to recover with a brilliant shot on the black as well. Exhibition style there from Chang, and he's certainly going to be full of confidence out there after that particular performance, as he's now put himself off a break of 54 points. So it will be down to 4 frames each for both Chang Minyu and Zhao Xington, and it will be all down to the final frame decider to determine the winner of the first session. Chang is insane. He is playing really well for himself, I would say, because, he was struggling at the beginning of that frame, but Zhao Xington once again didn't get too far away from him, and, at that stage, Chang was able to respond pretty well, still allowed Zhao to be coming back to the table later on, which was a bit of a problem, but he only gave him one shot of a long range. Zhao wasn't able to take that one away, and the rest is history, with a break of 54 points being the end. The 9th frame will be huge, to say the least. If either Zhao or Chang can win this frame, ideally with only one visit, they'll be more likely to win the match. Yeah, but I think it's probably going to be the less significant of all the frames to me, because it's the last frame. He will only give one frame advantage to either one of them. I think, Chang is not really going to panic if he's going to lose this frame, because, as I say, he's been 2-1, 2-0, 3-2, 4-3 behind, and yet he's still coming back very significantly and very consistently as well. And if Zhao Xingtong loses his frame, he'll probably try and think about what he's going to have for dinner for more time than being worried about, what he's got to do to change his plan there. I think he knows better than anyone he needs to play better for him to win this final, but I still think he will come away with a better performance. So I think Chang needs his frame more, but simply because I don't think Zhao Xingtong will care about losing that frame when it's over. I'm not saying he's not going to try, but mentally it would mean a lot more to Chang Minyu than it would mean to Zhao Xingtong. But the interval could always shift momentum too. Yeah, we are going to have around 3 hours or so, depending on how long this frame is going to be. But with how quick the previous 4 have been, you probably would expect 2 hours, 45 minutes or so for the players to have the rest in between this session and then the deciding session for both of them to try and see who's going to be the winner and the title holder here in Wuhan Open. So for now, Zhao Xingtong still once again trying to keep his head down, make sure his focus is on the road ahead. And that road is now going to consist of the finish line. Just see who's going to be able to get themselves ahead. As it's Chang Minyu to break off. So far, it's been a massive disadvantage for whoever had to break off. I think only in the last couple of frames, we finally stopped seeing those easy rates to be given away. But on the last time that Chang has broken off, even though he's managed to have a really good break off, I still think it didn't really stop Zhao Xingtong from getting a chance away. And I think that will be the case here. Although, really good cue ball there from Chang Minyu, and certainly covering the options of going for the red into the right corner because of the black being in the way of those reds. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. I would expect him to go for this red if he can see enough of it, especially since he's been aiming for it for a long time. And once again, that should be illegal. I think it's genuinely 5 out of 5 chances conceded there for Zhao Xingtong after a breakoff from Chang Minyu, and he's managed to make at least 4 of them. I'm thinking if he's made all 5, might have been a struggle for him on one of those occasions, but I think it's the same for Chang Minyu. He's had 4 break-off shots for Zhao Xingtong, and he's been able to, go for and make 3 of them, which is incredible. Of course, one of them was alongside the cue ball, which you don't really get bonus points for. But I think it's probably a fitting ending to this session, because that's exactly the way that majority of those frames were starting, with Zhao Xingtong to be getting a brilliant long shot, getting himself into the lead. Let's see how long this lead will last for him, because once again, trying to be on the front foot, nearly messed it all up on the second shot there, but still being alive. Dylan plans 8. Well, as I say, that was just an analogy. I don't think he's going to care if he loses this frame. I think he's going to be, as I say, thinking more about dinner than, oh my god, I lost that frame. I think the only thing he needs to focus on is trying to break down his game, trying to break down what's gone wrong, which I think that 90% of his problems have been down to a pot success, probably 80, probably 70 actually. Then 25 probably been down to the positional play, and then 5% of safeties, where there have been enough safeties there where he has made them to go wrong, but at the same time, I don't really think these were the reasons why Chang Minyu was winning those frames consistently. And it's a great shot there. So being able to learn as he goes, as he now sorts out the positional play on one of those raids, which he hasn't been able to do throughout the last couple of frames. So then 23 points of a lead, make that 30 with the black. But still getting a lovely little position ahead of him, with at least 3 more raids available, which will put him somewhere near 50 points of the advantage, which is going to be a very healthy lead to try and take into this frame number 9. Fair play, Zhao, but hopefully he can finish off the frame here. Yeah, we'll see. It'll be the first time that's happened. There have not been frames where it finished with a scoreline 2-0. The first one probably should have been like that, But Chang Min decided to carry on despite needing 5 snookers, and decided to carry on even when he needed 9 snookers as well, which was surprising, but clearly was down to Ronnie Watchalong's strategy, just to try and get himself a little bit of shots on the board. It didn't really work out in the second frame, but you never know. It may have given them those couple of shots which helped him in frames 3 and 4. And at that point, he was certainly settled into the match. But someone that has not been settled very consistently throughout the entirety of the match has been Zhao. And it's once again a break of 36 points. And yet again, it will be Chang Min to come back to the table. Well, he's got a red, which was the same red that Zhao has missed, available to him. He's travelled all the way from the left corner to the ball cushion, to the middle of the table again. So he can try and take that one away into the right corner. It's a very difficult shot, and it's a brilliantly taken there by Chang Min. He could not have played that one any better. And then, well, it was always going to be like this. As I say, this has been the summary of the way this match has gone in the first 9 frames. In around 7 of them, I think it's been like this. Zhao gets the first chance. He gets himself 30 or 40 points clear. Same for Chang Min, by the way. Then they make a mistake. Always on the positional, always on the pot success side of things. The other player comes back, either clears up or leaves another chance, which the other opponent will take. So it still doesn't look too bad for either one of them, because Chang Min is at the table, but history shows that it will be difficult for him to try and clear up the table, which probably is going to be what it takes for him to try and stop that winning streak and, start the losing streak there potentially for someone like Zhao. Also partly why Ronnie O'Sullivan was pulled out from the British Open. Very tight scheduling, unfortunately. We'll see, because I think it is down to... We've seen that before. I don't think he was at the Wuhan Open, but I think there was a tournament beforehand where Zhao has finished off on Sunday and he still plays on Tuesday. I'm not going to say a different part of the world, but he may still try and do that. We'll see. I think the winner might settle for a break. I think the loser might still fly to Cheltenham, but because of it being a blind draw, I think Chang needs that a little bit more, and I think he's more likely to lose the final more as well, to be honest with you, as he loses complete control of the cue ball. So, as I said, always going to be unlikely for him to try and finish off the work in this particular break. So then 16 points that he scores, 20 points behind, and still looking to try and make his way towards potting yet another red here, which is not going to be the case in this particular shot. So it just needs to play a good enough of a safety. But interestingly enough there, something that I never noticed was that foul points, 26 for Chang, 0 for Zhao, which is very, very surprising to be seeing. Certainly thought he had at least a couple of those, but in the end, it all seemed like all those foul points have come away from Chang Min. And why is the British Open so close to this one? Zhao has a match on Monday afternoon in England. I think they should be able to amend his schedule and make him play on Tuesday, but I'm not sure if he's going to be interested, especially if he wins this one. So we'll see what's going to happen. For now, he's certainly trying to improve the position there in relation to he's going to be interested into trying to make this as open as he can, as long as he has kept that red away onto the right side cushion until the end of this safety battle. Chang Min there, going for a very risky shot, clearly off 2 cushions. Sorry, not quite as risky as I thought, but still going to hit that one perfectly well. Needs the cue ball to keep on running, and he has. So perfectly lines up with the white, which was important, especially with how deadly Zhao has been on those long shots. And it's now going to be all down to an opportunity here to be taking a red away, because you feel like if there will be a chance for Zhao to be taking a red away towards the right corner, then he's certainly going to find himself in a position of some sort of safety, or indeed he can try and go for the reds into the corner. This is going to be really interesting because he's got the black to be right over that red. I think Chang Min is still going to be able to pot it, but easier said than done. The red is just about far enough away from the corner pocket not to make it an easy shot, but also if you play a shot like that, cushion first, Chang is smiling about it. Zhao doesn't really have a reason to be smiling about it. What happens to the collar is going to be very important as well. Frame 9 and the final one in this session. Is this frame 9? It is going to be. So that will be the end. So we'll just see what's going to happen here with Chang Minyu. Can he try and find the line that he's looking at? Make sure that referee there making sure that he hasn't left himself any chalk marks, which of course will be pretty sure will be illegal in snooker, same as pool. Can't leave yourself a marker to play that particular shot. But I mean, unless he decides to try and play a safety shot, which will be risky, because you're always going to have to be, very much aware that if you play a safety shot, doesn't necessarily mean that Zhao Xington is going to be joining you in doing that, and decides not to go for that red through the side cushion. Of course, if you're going to play a safety shot, you need to be making sure that you're going to play that shot well enough so that you won't be down to a chance to your opponent. So, yeah, you can see there was a little bit of a chance for that red to be dropping it, but maybe the power killed that chance to the end. So then still Chang looking at the red to be taken into the left corner, but maybe not being happy with it for now. Alternatively, of course, he could try and initiate the plant in towards the left corner. He needs to be reasonably close to it, though. Otherwise, he's going to have the cue ball to be in all sorts of trouble, and that was the case. Well, unfortunately, he was never going to have control of the cue ball, and, well, that was the problem with taking that shot on. He was not on the colour anyway, even if that red has found the target for him, but now he has left the cue ball right over that red with, well, a great chance for Zhao Xington, you would have thought, but no reason for him to try and cannon into the black there. It seems like he's still got the pink to be available. But, yeah, the black certainly would have been an easier shot for him to play. Still a bit of distance in between this one. And also, you have to cue straight, which is never ideal. But there was a little bit of angle, which I think made the life for Zhao Xington a little bit easier. But still a good shot that he's played. And now on his way. Once again, one chance each. And then another chance would prove to be the winning one, it would seem. Because 27 points in the lead, so many reds to be available, but also a couple that are going to be a problem for Chang Minyu. Not necessarily for Zhao Xington, because he won't need them. As he's now looking to try and make still a chance for, a decent break there, but I'm not sure if he was going to be down to a century break that he's got available, with 13 as the break. So we won't see a break of 100 plus in any one of those first 9 frames, but in the end we have seen 4 breaks of 50 plus from Chang Minyu, 3 from Zhao Xington, and we could still see the 4th one here as well. If Zhao is able to take a reasonable number of reds away, but I think most certainly he is going to be able to take the frame away. And once again, despite having a 2-all, 3-all, 4-all draw, he has never found himself to be the man behind, and I don't think it's going to be subject to change here. So the 40 points is the lead, 67 at the table, so he will need 2 reds, 2 colours, and then that will be more than 51 points of the advantage. Didn't want to be straight though on the blue, which I don't think is going to be the end of the world, but certainly could have done without it. May have to go for the pink now with a bit of a mid-range shot, thinking about the black, but there's no reason to be taking the black on. Just try and drop the pink away, play the cue ball to the left, hopefully give himself an angle. Well, I mean, that was out of nowhere, but you have to say, once again, it's just not good enough there from Zhao Xington. And once again, it is 20% of the positional play where he run himself wide on the pink and he run himself very straight on the blue. But that still is absolutely unforgivable of a mistake for him to be making. So, well, it does change the situation in the match there, you have to say. Because to lose a frame like this is going to be a pain there for Zhao Xington. But I still think he's quite far away from that, but not quite far as he was when he was at the break. Now then, Chang Minyu has got a massive shot ahead of him because he's very much alongside the pink, which means a very difficult cut. But also, I think he's done that on purpose to try and bring reds into play. And he played that shot about as well as he could have. Really well played there from Chang Minyu. And that might be the time for him to take control. And therefore, be feeling some really good pressure here when it comes down to Chang Minyu to try and put a little bit of it back onto Zhao Xington's shoulders because, as I say, absolutely out of nowhere that mistake came on the pink. And all of a sudden, it was 2 chances for Xington. It's now a second chance away for Chang Minyu. And, well, just like he was with Zhao Xington, you don't really have a feeling that he will be the one that cost him dearly. Although, that wasn't the best positional shot that he could have played. So he's now going to have to try and change the dynamic slightly there, you would feel. Having to go for the pink, which is similar to the one that Zhao Xington has missed. But Probably a little bit closer there with the cue ball to the pink, but also just having, a little bit more confidence in himself, you would feel. Let's have a look how well he's going to be able to try and play that cue ball towards the red. Probably about as well as he could have. Being perfectly straight on the red doesn't really help, but at the same time, if he gets himself to be a wrong side of a blue, he's got one of those reds to be waiting for him at the top end of the table. That's going to be the only thing that can go wrong for him here. So let's see what's going to happen. As I say, it'll be a massive frame for him to win. He's dropped his chalk, but most importantly, he hasn't dropped the position of the cue ball at any point during this break so far. But this is the shot. This is the key one. Just make sure you don't get stuck in between, the yellow, the brown and green and the cue ball. So then he's managed to take the longer way around, which is always going to leave him with a tighter cut, which is not ideal, which is why I was a little bit surprised that he's gone for that shot, which is still going to have to play a good shot on the red, but also needs a good color now to try and get himself back towards the yellow. Let's see how well it's going to go. The red is in, and how's the color going to be looking? It's not going to look great, but it's not going to look terrible either. He's got an option of going for the blue once or going for the yellow twice out there. And Chang wins. Xington mistake. Well, we'll see. Zhao do not choke this frame. Well, it seems like he has, because it's now 7 shots and he's in complete control of Chang Minyu out there that has scored 101 more points than Zhao Xington. And of course, he's still going to have to try and score 27 points out there to win this frame. He won't really need the black there, to be fair, if he is to make a total clearance without the black, but still, I think he would love to try and finish with another break of 50 plus. Let's see how much of a bounce there is on the cue ball. And there is just about enough of it there, I think. I mean, he doesn't really want to be pushing the cue ball too far, or too little, I should say, in towards the top part of the table, because now, if he was straight, that's perfect. If he's slightly on the wrong side of a yellow, that's perfect as well. But because he's lower than the yellow, he's going to have to try and force this one and beelines up for the green. Well, once again, a little bit tight, this one. The yellow is in. The green is going to be, once again, requiring a bit of a recovery to get on the brown. So let's see how well he's going to be able to hit this shot. Pretty well when he comes down to potting the green. And now, he's finally been able to get himself back to the prime position there. On towards the brown. It's still not an easy shot, but, he should be able to make this one 10 times out of 10. And then get himself lined up for the pink. And then, of course, the blue, I should say. And the pink being the frame ball. 3 shots later, which will be a massive win for him, you have to say. Because still being, 9 points, 10 points down out there. I don't know why I've done my math so wrong, but he's still going to need the black, of course. But with it being so close towards the left corner, it shouldn't really be an issue. And it'll be a fitting end to this frame with a total clearance of 53 points, which is going to be the target for Chang Minyu's 5th break of 50 plus. And the previous 4 have won in the frame. Let's see how nicely is he going to be lined up for the cue ball. But we're still going to need the pink there, as he just found out. And the black as well. So then the pink will put him 5 points clear, and then he's going to have to go for the black. So the final black, it would seem, to sort out of what's going to happen in between those two players. Whatever happens on the pink, both of the players will need a black for a deciding frame in this first session. And he tried to go for power. Well, he should be able to reach this cue ball there with the rest without the second extension. So then, it's a good job that the black is quite close to the pocket, otherwise it would have been a bit of an issue. But barring pressure, there will be no real interruption there. But there was someone in the crowd shouting there, which doesn't really help to Chang Minyu. I just feel like if he's going to do anything, he's going to overcut it. But in the end, it was way too simple there to miss the black. And he will be, for once, Chang Minyu to be leading Zhao Xington 5 frames to 4. And he's done that at a very important point. Even though that break of 53, he's still not going to be making it into the top 4 for himself, as he's made breaks of 53, 54, 54 twice actually, 76 and 64 as well. But in the end, that last break was the most important of them all, because for once, when the frame was close, Chang Minyu was able to come away with a frame win for himself as well. And now, this is when you're going to have to pull the trigger and stop the session, which has been full of excitement, full of adrenaline, but at the end, it's been full of mistakes as well. And both of the players are going to have to come away with a bit of a better performance, because now you do find yourself to be in a position of Chang Minyu against Zhao to be battling their way all the way towards, how long is the intermission? It should be around 2.5 hours time. First time Chang has led in the match, fair play. It is, certainly, and he's going to have to try and improve on that very, very shortly, because 5-4 of a lead is good. It's not good for Zhao Xingtong that had a 4-3 lead and was still trying to make it a 6-3 of a lead for him, but didn't really work out at the end. But now he will be down to Chang Minyu to be in that new position where he's still going to have to try and find himself to be in that situation where he's not only 1 frame ahead, but he's allowing himself to be more than 1 frame ahead, and ultimately keeping his game to a very high standard, which we've seen plenty of glimpses of, especially in the latest 5 frames, from both himself and Zhao Xingtong. But you also have to say the performance has improved, the volume of mistakes has been reduced, but it needs to be reduced a lot more for both of them if one of them is indeed to win this final. But in the end, it's probably the best possible setup, as we don't have a clear favourite, and it's actually the underdog that has got a minor lead, as it's now Chang Minyu that leads Zhao Xingtong by 5 frames to 4. Thank you very much for everyone watching. As I say, there's not really been a massive turnaround out there, but you also have to say there'll be plenty more things to play for as we approach the frame number 10. But Chang Minyu has certainly learned plenty of lessons in comparison to his match against Chris Wakeland, because so far, even when he wasn't playing well, he was able to come away with majority of the answers. So far, so good. So then, it will come down to the outcome to be very much known after the session 2. Feel free to tune into that one in 2.5 hours time, as this match has seen plenty of action, plenty of drama, and there's plenty more of it to come if the match is going to stay about as close as it has been so far, which I'm in doubt of, but I'll be a great fan if I am to be proven wrong on this one. Once again, thank you for everyone watching. Stay tuned in, and we'll see you soon for the 10th frame to begin, and at least 5 more frames for us to see who's going to be the winner. We'll have to wait and see. Once again, thanks for watching. Stay tuned in, subscribe to the channel, hit the like on the stream, and be back for the second session to be very close to ourselves right now. Thanks again.